This is Naoki Yoshida,
This is Fern Hall.
and you are listening to Aetheryte Radio.
Aetheryte Radio.
Here we go!
All right, hello, and welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm FusionX. Joining me today, we have everybody. We've got Zen,
Boy.
we've got Aldino, and we've got Rook.
Hello.
We
So-
are everybody. So are you.
Everyone.
It is all of us.
All right, I was trying to think of like something super witty to say. I don't know. I got nothing.
Insert witty retort here.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. Don't worry about it.
Right. So
I'm here?
that's the only reason we keep you around is for your witty retorts.
boy.
So today we are going to talk about our initial hands-on impressions of patch 5.4. No spoilers. No spoilers. If anybody here starts to talk about spoilers, we're just gonna kick them out. They're gone. We won't hear from them ever again.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding.
That's a very serious threat.
They will never be here. All right. Before we get started, though, we do have a piece of news, and we're gonna try and go over it somewhat briefly because if we stay on it too long, I know we're gonna get worked up.
We're gonna cry.
Right. So this past week, it was announced that Mighty, who was the author of the Father of Light blog, which was turned into that show on Netflix and then adapted into a movie, has passed away from cancer. Fuck cancer, obviously. Yoshida last night put up just the sweetest message on the developers blog. Give that a read. Grab a tissue.
Seriously.
You won't need
It's rough. Like I'm already getting kind of.
I know, just thinking about it. I was just thinking
it's-
about reading
it's
it again and I
rough.
was tearing up.
It's rough. If you haven't
Tiny
seen
man,
the show,
big heart.
Yeah.
yeah. If you haven't seen the show, definitely check it out. If you don't know what it is, it's about a son who reconnects with his father by giving his dad a copy of 14 and then kind of anonymously like helping him through the game and stuff. It's a really really sweet story. And
And it's a true story. Like, it was
It's a
a
true
real
story.
about
It is a true story.
Like,
it's on
so cool.
Netflix globally, I believe. So, if you don't have access to Netflix, get access for a month, watch it, check it out. It's definitely a great story. So, our thoughts and prayers are to Mighty's family and friends. And, it sucks. It sucks. I don't know what else to say without trying to just like waterfalls, right?
Right.
So
Don't go chasing them.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing though because, and even in that blog, it's so sweet to hear Yoshida-san, but also like if you watch the show, and like the show is kind of funny, right? It has its own sort of J-drama, twist
Sure.
to it, and it's stylized and silly, but there are so many things that are so true about MMOs, and like at his heart, Mighty was so passionate about games like this and Final Fantasy XIV and the ways that they could bring players together and developers together and everybody together in these experiences. So it's such a sad loss, but it's also really amazing the legacy that I think Mighty has left behind in regards to what MMOs can mean to our lives and to the people that we meet in them. I mean, even just meeting all of you here in the podcast, right? It's wild. And everyone who listens or that we come in touch with in game, it's amazing. So it's definitely worth checking out, and it's very, very sad, but it's also really wonderful to reflect back on just how much these games can mean to so many of us, especially right now when we've been so distanced from one another,
Yeah.
For sure.
So
Exactly.
all right. So with that out of the way,
Everybody, clear out your sniffles.
5.4 hands-on show. No spoilers. So we don't have an outline. A lot of times we'll come in and we'll have a very structured list and order of things. We're just kind of whatever. So before I forget, because I want to make sure that I talk about this. The last couple weeks, we've brought up Triple Triad, and I've just been kind of like, like whatever. It's Triple Triad. Like why are they spending 20 minutes talking about Triple Triad? Nobody cares. So I did the draft open tournament. and then did it a few more times. It's actually really solid.
He likes it. He really likes
right?
it.
So it's the same thought of like, if you told me I was going to be ocean fishing this patch, I would have told you were. It's that same kind of a thing, and more so too because it's every 2 hours, just like ocean fishing. It's that same kind of timer set, so you can show up and just queue in. It'll tell you what the rules are. It can explain the rules if you don't know what they are, and then it'll just throw you into a lobby, which has a really nice new version of Shuffle and Boogie playing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Of course, then it goes into the game, then it plays the original one. You're like, no, go back to the new one. Go.
Wait, come back.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. And then depending on how you rank, it'll give you like a card pack, and some MGP. If you were just kind of like, oh, it's just triple trad, give it a shot. Like I liked it way more than I thought I would. It's kind of one of those things where like I've been sitting here like getting work done a lot this week, and I'll be like, what time is it? 5 minutes till triple triad? Okay, we'll just take a little break here. So yeah, definitely check it out. Yeah.
Is it due to the draft nature of picking the cards as you go through, or making that deck?
I mean I think that's a little part of it. I think the other part of it is it's just an easy thing to jump in and do.
Right.
Obviously if there's not a full group of players, it will insert NPCs. Like I lost first place to an NPC, which is like but like the idea of just being able to jump in and just play with other people, like it's just it's super easy to do, and it's super chill there, and so I think it's really great. So check it out if you haven't.
That's awesome. I'm honestly really glad to hear that, because I have not tried it yet. But Aldino, I mean, even just thinking back on you saying like this will change triple triad,
and that's what that's what made me try it in the first place. He's like, draft is awesome, because like I don't know anything about TCGs or whatever, and he's like, this is gonna be a game changer. And I'm like, all right, whatever, Aldino, if that is your real name. And so I went and I tried it, and it was solid. Like it's pretty cool.
I mean, I think it's just the streamlining, right? Because like with Magic and other collectible card games, trading card games, you have to build a deck, right? And then you have that deck, and then you have to know how to use it, and know these, it feels like there's this big, barrier of entry. But when you're just with everyone else and you pick cards out of a pool and then you just play, you're all figuring it out as you play it, and it's much more fun.
Well, and and an element too of that is if you're playing like, you think of like the older tournaments, which were mostly rigged anyway, just with the way people were playing. Gasp. Everybody is drawing from this kind of randomized pool of cards, right? So it's not like you're like, oh, this guy has like the card, right? So like we're just gonna get, he's gonna wipe the floor with us. It's not the case. It's you get your selection of stuff, and so do they. So
yeah. To me, like, draft is the way to learn any game. Like, if you're interested in getting into any of the card games, when it's possible in the future to be in person, cool. If they have, something online.
Till then, play triple triad.
Yeah, exactly. It just lets you see the game at a slower pace, and then you get into it, and then you're like, oh, I would need that card for my real deck. And that's how they get you.
It works. I mean, it works really well. Like the way that they changed the timer now, where it's 90 seconds total. So that means you have four games going. Each of them will last a maximum of 90 seconds. Maybe you finish sooner. So you finish your game, you wait for everything else to do it. They compute like who's, the order of who's in first, second, third, whatever. They put people into another match. They do 3 of those, and that's it. And then if you get like first place, you get, I think it's like three card packs, a little bit of MGP. Like it's really nice. Cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because I didn't try it. I just haven't had a lot of time.
Yeah, I needed to get that off my chest. Like as soon as I tried this, I'm like, all right, I need to clear the air a little bit.
To both know and admit when you are wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Triple triad draft tournaments are solid.
Excellent. I mean, I'm glad, because I don't think any of us, except for maybe Aldino, were expecting much from this. So it's nice to have something that's a good little surprise,
Yeah.
For sure. What else? Ocean fishing.
So
anybody?
I didn't have a chance to do ocean fishing yet.
Oh, looks like nobody. Me
neither. Ooh, sorry.
So it's one of those things too, though, right? Where it's like there's a few little additions, but like most, like overall, like just ocean fishing content. We've talked about that before, right? I think at this point most of us have experienced that. It's just they've given you a couple little like missions to do while you're out there in a couple new areas. So
I mean,
Anybody
I'm
do the
glad.
map? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I'm glad at least that they're still supporting it, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think for me things like ocean fishing and even the Triple Triad edition, right? My big rush like the first week when stuff releases is always that main content, and because like our static is starting up again, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well I got to do all this other stuff. But those things have really nice kind of longevity, so that when you get through all of the rest of the things, you can be like, oh yeah, ocean fishing got an expansion, you know, like so then you're like, I guess I'll go do
Mhm.
some ocean
Right.
fishing when you've kind of run out of some of the other stuff. So I'll probably try it then, although I didn't go like super intensely hard on it like you did, Fusion, when it first came out. So I still
look,
got some rewards
I
work
needed
towards.
Baby and Daddy Shark. All right,
Baby
I just-
Shark. Yes. I had to have it, and I'm gonna need that plushie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Taito,
Um,
why can't Square Enix? You own Taito. Like, why can't you just bring that stuff
I did not
over?
know.
I would like to have a bunch of the little things as little figures. I have a bunch of them already.
I mean, I'm like
I think I have all of them but the
90% sure
napkin.
that Square owns Taito.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's.
Yeah.
If you don't, you should.
I think they do.
Don't.
Yeah,
You
I
got
want
money.
that. I want that.
You just
shark.
released some more Final Fantasy VII. You got money.
Yeah.
Maps. Anybody
What
do
was
maps
it?
yet?
Yes,
There we-
I did maps. I mean, it's as expected, right?
I
Like,
I
it's-
really honestly miss the roulette map pretty bad because I like there's like some small layer of anxiety when it's like pick this door, and you can totally screw it up, man.
Yep.
Um
All you gotta
but
do
with
is
the roulette,
pick
it's
the
like,
right one.
hit button, can't do anything about it now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I kind of like that version. And
Yeah.
actually when I did a group with I think 7 to 8 people and we all had 3 maps. So it was a fair amount of maps. We didn't
Oh wow.
I think maybe got like a third of the portals, so it wasn't as many portals as we would have liked, but all of them were roulette except for one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did. I ended up
Um,
jumping into a group last night. I think like mine and like one other one didn't get the roulette, but yeah, I mean it's the roulette treasure map dungeon. I mean, there's really
Like it.
not a whole yeah.
It's
Did they
something
add
new.
Did they add anything new, like any new little quirky mechanics, like the mandragoras or things like that, where
I
there's?
don't think so.
See, I didn't think so either. We did have one of the groups I'm a part of did have a treasure map night this week, but I couldn't go to it, so I didn't get to do it to see. But I always like when they add a little bit of something with the new iteration. You know, that
Yeah.
you get some new little
There's,
mini game, some new
I
little
don't
surprise.
do the maps enough to be like, oh, this is a new mob. Like it's just like it's
I don't
things. I
know
kill them.
If it is
chests.
new or not, but you know the like big gritty-esque mob? They had some
Yeah.
rainbow color ones of those that you have to
The
fight. There's like
keeper
a
of the
big one,
keys.
and he
Mhm.
yes, and he spawns like 3 or 4 little ones, and you have to deal with all of them spinning around and sucking you in at the
It's
same time.
you know it's interesting on that, just kind of a general observation of this patch.
Mhm.
Lots of rainbows.
Yes.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Like
you're
that's
right.
that model is very rainbowy. There's some rainbowy stuff in Eden.
Yep.
Matoya's
I wanna
relic is
cram-
basically like a rainbow like volcano. Like I don't know how else to
Oh
I
my
want to
gosh.
cram as many rainbows into this game as
Yes.
can possibly be fit in here. I mean, I'm all for the rainbow life. I love it. But I mean, when we get to the raid stuff too, I mean,
yeah.
with our spoiler review, there will be more discussion of this as well.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
yeah, there was some rainbow imagery this time around. Some I think
Yeah.
just for whimsy and fun. Some maybe with a greater purpose.
Subtle
maybe.
undertones.
Subtle
Yeah.
undertones of supporting, you know, all of us who are LGBTQIA plus. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I like rainbows, so I'm all about that.
But what is it? I think I might have been one of the first people. No, I was maybe like the 3rd person to get the roulette, and I was the first person to get the paintbrush boat to drop from maps. Except the way that we do our maps, we go kind of like round robin. So you may not get the thing that drops on your map, but everybody gets a good thing, you know?
Hmm.
I like that actually.
So I
I-
did not get the paintbrush emote. I rolled a 94 and was like, and then somebody rolled a 99.
Mhm.
But that's okay because I only go with my friends, so my friends are still getting good stuff. But
Yeah.
the really cool thing about the paintbrush emote is all 4 colors are part of the paintbrush emote. So
Oh, I
you don't
didn't
have to get
realize.
Yeah, you don't have
Okay.
to get 4 different emotes. They're all part of the same singular emote, but it is from maps, so you have to do maps.
That's nice. There's
Is
some
that
good
the
rewards.
decadent
map stuff.
decoration or whatever it's called? Is that the
Yes.
paintbrush? Oh, okay. I saw that drop a few times last night, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
That's the paintbrush. Lot on it.
Noted. Well, I mean, I greeted anyway, but
Yeah.
didn't get it. So cool. Let's see what else. What else is there?
Oh, and
always
stuff like shell leather, you can get outside. The shell leather and the cloth
Mhm.
softener stuff, you can get outside
Yeah.
now as well. So
Nice.
the
I
stuff that
think-
was hard to get before inside is outside.
And I think calfskin is from this as well.
Yeah, that's the new one. Mhm.
So that's that really nice looking leather set that we've seen with the
Mhm.
cap and
The hat.
The cap that doesn't work on Vieira.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm
real
so
sorry.
sorry. I'm so
sorry too. I am also sorry. I'm so sorry down to the very bottom of my soul because nothing, like almost none of the headpieces work on Vieira this time around. There's like a few, but even in the new Tombstone gears and stuff, none of the hoods work. None of the. I just at this point, I don't even know what to say anymore except for please fix this, please.
Yeah.
At least
It's
all of the
so
healer
wild.
bodies are really cute.
I mean, yeah, all the bodies and stuff are adorable.
Talking
but
about it's rough.
It's just tough.
If you ever need a Fantasia, let me know.
No.
I just
Don't give
wanna
up. Don't give
up.
in. No,
I don't
do
want to
it.
give up. Never give up. Never
Yeah.
surrender. It's just
Oh my
that it is a continued and ongoing problem, and it's so frustrating.
Right.
Like, I keep thinking to myself, and I know a lot of other players are in the same boat where they're like, well, this time surely they made them all for and then you try them on and you can't. So I mean, that continues to be a problem, and I really hope they say something here in the patch cycle because it does stink not being able to get excited for stuff like this. Like when we have no other baseball caps in the game, I'm not putting it on my girl. That's not her aesthetic. You know what I mean?
One baseball
But-
cap in the game.
But it's like if there is one kind of a hat or if there's a thing that you've been looking for the aesthetic of your character and you just can't put it on, it's so frustrating. So there is that, but all the rewards that came from treasure maps this time around are really good. I love, that set that you can make and all the other things, the emote and stuff. So, I mean, maps are always a good way just to kill some time with friends too and get some gil.
I actually like that baseball cap a lot more than I thought I would.
They're a good way to
just
cap
trying it
out
on.
as well.
The thing
if you're
that
tired of
bugs me,
expert already.
yeah, the thing that bugs me though is the shoes from that set. They're like a really nice, like a black sneaker. No socks. So you'll have this whole like leather set, and then you have just like skin showing between the pant and the foot.
Just pretend it's an
there's-
ankle sock.
Yeah,
No,
Fusion, it's an ankle sock.
I want a sock. I want an actual.
See, I don't know
You
which
don't
one
like
is
the no-show?
cooler. Yeah, I don't know which one is cooler or not cool because I feel as though unless you have like real nice fancy socks showing in the gap of your pants is considered less cool. So I can see maybe why they left them. That's why there
It's
are
probably-
ankle socks.
Welcome
like,
to
if you wanna
Aetheryte
wear the
Radio, where we're going to
shoes
go on a
with,
15-minute
tights.
tangent about socks.
But like if you want to wear the shoes with tights, right? Having
Yeah.
also socks on top of the tights would look silly.
Dim.
It would look silly.
Hmm.
I'm sorry about your socks, man.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Fusion. It's really sad.
Pour one out for no socks.
Yeah, to me, like, I don't understand no-show socks at all anyway, so, like, in real life, so, well, you okay.
I don't know.
I like them.
It's just weird.
This is silly. I like them for when I'm wearing pants that I'm gonna wear boots over,
Yeah, see,
so that
that's,
there's not
yeah,
like pant boot overlap
right.
or like
What?
pant sock overlap. Cause you have your pants hit your ankle and then you have the ankle sock and then you wear boots over all of it and it's flat instead of being like
No.
overlapped.
Then what you gotta do is you tuck your pants into the socks, and then it's extra comfy. Then you put the boot on right over. Otherwise, when you're wearing the boot, the ankle sock is gonna get rolled down inside your boot while you walk.
That's
I-
also
okay,
cold
so I
weather
have-
stuff, too.
I have like really small feet, so my socks never roll down ever because
Well,
they're already pulled up extra high.
My God, you monster! I have huge duck feet. So, all right, this is a complete tangent.
It's
but-
just a tangent, yeah.
Fashion and sock and comfort and sock.
Vera headpieces, please, and I guess some socks for Fusion. His
I'm
feeties
just-
are cold.
Maybe for Christmas, just get some ear warmers for the Vieira. We'll just put 2 big socks
Right.
on the.
I mean,
There's
at least
just-
it would be something. I would
I'm
take
just-
that.
I was just
big
trying
stockings.
to rant about it like technically because I just don't understand it. Literally being someone who deals with rigs for characters all day long, I don't understand why you can't just disable that part. I don't understand. I've done it before, literally. So I don't understand. There must be something.
Yeah.
So I don't
Maybe
want
it's
to
the way the hair is rigged or something.
I
Like
guess
they
so.
can't get rid of the hair without ears.
Yeah, maybe
because
the
then the
hair.
hair would be really like weird.
PS,
I don't know, though, 'cause they
PS4
are
limitations.
definitely- I don't know.
Yeah.
There's definitely some hats already where the ears just clip through.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
why I'm really confused. But you know,
They
It's just
they just-
it's that screw
the
it. Just put it
person-
on. Just have it clip. Whatever.
yeah.
The person in charge is actually an intern, and the intern just keeps forgetting to hit the checkbox. That's the only reason.
That's it. I have hope that in February we'll hear that we don't have any new races, but we have a lot more customization. That's what my hope is. So hopefully, maybe
They'll come out and
yeah.
announce that they're actually going to finish
right.
the races.
Yeah.
I'm still hopeful that they're going to do the flip flop, just like
sure. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like
It would-
1.0,
it would
we
be
had
nice.
male Rogadin and female Mikote, and 2 came out and they gave us female Rogadin and male Mikote.
It would
So
be
that's
nice.
my hope.
So here's the question then. Would you rather have the opposite genders
Oh.
or hats?
I
for
mean,
the
I don't
current
play
ones?
it, but I feel like yes, that's what I would
Rook
rather
hates me
see.
so much for asking that question. She's like,
Right?
How
How do
dare
you decide?
For me, it's not an either. It's not an either or. For
Right.
me, it's like if you're gonna finish the races, then you're going to finish the races. Like do the opposite gender and give them all the hairstyles, especially the paid hairstyles that you spent money on that might be on that character, and make the headpieces work. Like I get if we've said this so many times, we don't have
Right.
to keep going on about it, but it's like I get if they can't retroactively do all of the gear, but.
Right.
It just like coming into a new patch, it is disheartening. And that's not to say that I don't love so many other things about the game and so many other things, even just about Viera. Obviously, I'm still playing them. But it really stinks when I see like, oh man, I love those new Bloodborne styled sets that came out. Oh, whoa, I love those cool faceplates with like the porcelain kind of mask in the hood. And then it doesn't even matter. Like you could spend all day farming them and you're not
Can't
going to
have
get
it.
that appearance. You can't have it.
Brooke,
And it's,
I have a very important question for you.
yes.
Is that a Namazu with a bandit mask on behind you?
No, that's just with
It's just
his
a
own
normal
face on
Namazu.
behind me. It's just a normal Namazu. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, because your room is dark and it like looked extra dark, so I was like, did you like make him a custom mask? Like, is
I
he a
did.
bandit Namazu?
Yes, I have for a long time said I can never cosplay because I don't know how to sew, but I specialize in one thing, and that is making Namazu outfits. So
Okay.
no, that's just my little buddy.
All right.
Yeah, that's the
Sorry,
Taito
really
Namazu.
distracted. Like, I'm looking at your camera as you're talking, like really interested in what you're talking, and then like look slightly behind your head, and I'm like, what is that?
I moved him. Everybody's been so shocked. He was up on one of my shelves, and I moved him for this past week. So I was like, I should just put him behind me. And everybody's been like, "Is that a Namazu?" And I'm like,
Yes,
"Yes,
it is.
Yep.
I have
We'll-
also
we'll
fallen
link,
victim to the,
the-
is
the-
that?
We'll link the link to Rook's Etsy store for Namazu clothing down below.
And
Like I'm honestly considering it now that the Paisa ones are out because you can take his little chef outfit off, right? So
Can
you
you?
can put any kind of yes. It's like sewn on.
Oh.
So if you like
Oh.
snip the things, you can pull his outfit off. So I'm like
I
super
mean-
considering being like I need to get a Paisa, cut his little
Hmm.
clothes off, and then sew some different clothes and just open an Etsy store.
I have the Namazu's on a bookcase in the bedroom. It has the yellow chocobo hat from FanFest because it was a little too. I have a bigger head, so like a lot of hats don't really fit. So I just put it on the Namazu, and he looks like such a tourist with it on. It's great.
So this
Like,
is
I could
not
just-
actually a hands-on 5.4 episode. This is about fashion.
Yeah,
this is a fashion
we're
episode.
gonna talk about
Paisa
socks
fashion,
and
Mazu
hats.
fashion. Yeah.
All right, what else about 5.4 can we talk about? Let's see. It's like some other content came out, but I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
I was trying to do all the smaller stuff first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, we can talk about Monk a little.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody play Monk?
I don't play it, but I've been kind of watching the reaction, and so far it's mixed but good. Damage wise, you can feel the difference. You can see the difference in places where you can see differences like that. Not that they exist.
Are the differences better or worse?
Better, definitely
Okay.
better.
Positive.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
positive differences.
Good.
jury's
I've
out
heard
on,
you're-
on complexity, right?
Yeah.
Because you know
Sure.
that's the thing about Monk, right? Jury's still out on that, but damage wise, it is an increase.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
I've heard from our monk that he feels like he's on crack cocaine.
yeah,
Hmm.
that he's super fast.
Just
And-
punching, nonstop punching.
yeah,
He's like
because-
in the middle of a Baby Eden raid, which I guess we can talk about next.
Yeah.
He just goes,
Yeah.
you guys, look at this ability I've never got to use before. Just uses tornado kick. I was
Yeah.
like, that's actually a really cool animation. I've never seen it.
There's a lot of good. There's definitely a lot of good.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's done. I mean, none of the classes' jobs are
Sure.
done. But I think it is a positive change. Yeah, I mean, think about it. Not having to stack up to your full speed.
Mhm.
You just start at your speed. Like, that's insane.
0 to
Yeah.
60.
That was the impression I had just from kind of going through the notes with
Right.
the gosh, there was the timer for, what was it, the one that eliminates directional requirements, where they like took it
Oh,
down from
yeah.
like 60 seconds to like 30 seconds. It's just like, damn.
Right. I mean, they have a lot of ways to get the to ignore stances and to ignore positionals now. They have even more. So that's really nice for a raiding monk. You know, there's a lot of times where you just have to be on one side or the other, or in front, or who knows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes sense from the design mentality that they have been, I think, reinforcing with the changes in the direction that they took coming into Shadowbringers. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. The idea of like, should there be high skill ceiling classes where, got it, third try, where, you know, playing really proficiently gives you significantly more damage than maybe simpler classes, right?
Mhm.
And it's tough because as a player, I like those classes. Like, I like when I have a class that I can really perfect and dig into, and that might be more punishing, but that's really rewarding when you learn it and you're like juggling all the different things. But I think they've really showed that they are doing an opposite, which is not like a bad thing. I mean, just like you're saying, Aldino, it's
Mhm.
not as though it is a bad thing. It's just a different design mentality versus having these discrepancies in classes, right? Where, you know, some might be harder to play, some might be easier, and there's some sort of reflective balance because of that. They really do seem to have gone the route of, we want all classes to be viable, we want all of them to generally be about the same in potencies, etc. And because of that, it means that they aren't going to punish those simpler classes, right? So instead, they've decided, well, it's not really fair to have these high punishment classes if these simpler classes are going to be doing about the same potencies, if not better, with much less energy.
Just
you know what
straight
I
better.
mean? It's
Mhm.
just like, it's tough because I do think it takes a little bit of some of the fun away from the design of those classes. The idea that like, this class, you have to do X to really excel at it, you know? But at the same time, I mean, I think it is unfair to expect somebody to play a class that is way more punishing or way more difficult, but not get like a significant, you know, reward for doing it well.
It's
Right.
weird
So
that we see that and also the opposite, because we have Samurai who kicks everybody's butt, Monk that is more difficult and doesn't do as high damage, but we also have like Black Mage and Red Mage. Red Mage is simpler and doesn't do as much damage. Which one are you gonna do, Square Enix? Like pick a side, or
Well, it depends. Are you working on prog or?
yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's the
And I
thing.
mean,
It's that you have to keep that identity with each job, but you also kind of have to balance it. But realistically, jobs can serve a purpose.
Right.
So I
It's-
don't envy the people that have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's a hard balance. And you know, one of the things is, in contrast to a game like WoW, we are much closer. So much closer.
True.
Even the lowest damage is not as far off as the lowest damage in WoW, especially after this new expansion. It's really swingy. But it's that is not that doesn't feel good if your class is harder to play. Period.
Yep.
It doesn't.
Mhm.
It does not.
is that so, Mr. Summoner?
It does not feel good. I mean, I'm doing Red Mage for Prague mostly because it's Prague, but also because Red Mage is creeping up too. Not a lot, but it is going up a little bit. And then as a caster, honestly, if you filled the caster slot, you have to decide: am I raising because of Prague? Am I raising a little bit less and I can do Summoner? Or do I want to do damage? And I really don't like that.
Yeah.
I've never liked it, but it's the way you kind of have to go.
Right.
I don't think that raising should be as much of a tax as it is, because some places, like let's just say the first fight of Eden and Savage, at some points raising is not a good idea. Not very great. No, don't do that. So it's I don't know. I mean they're navigating it probably better than I've seen most MMOs navigate it, but it's still not
It's
as
funny.
fulfilling, right?
We're so spoiled, but we're also like,
Right.
but you did so good. Why can't you just be perfect?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's
You're
good to
already
keep
right there.
talking.
Just go. That little... Just
I mean, it's good
hats.
to
It's
keep
all you
talking
got to
about
do.
it.
Mhm.
Because, like, I mean, you're right, Aldino. Everything you said, I think, is so spot on. We really are in Final Fantasy XIV, probably in all the MMOs that I play, the most balanced as far as classes go, which is nice because there is a real frustration, especially in other MMOs where you can't play all the classes on one character.
Right.
Like, that's a huge differentiator for me with the style of 14 versus the style of other MMOs. Like, if you have a main character that you have geared that is X class, they cannot do anything else, you know? That is the class that they are. So if the balance isn't well tuned in that game, you have to make a whole new character. You have to level that character. You have to gear that character. Like, it is so much more arduous. In 14, it's funny because I think we have some of the best balance, and people obviously have favorite classes to play, but the flexibility of choice is much greater. So to me, I'm like, I think that if people have more freedom to choose, it gives you a little more freedom. But I also totally agree that it doesn't feel good when you have a class that just doesn't do as well as others. And this idea that you have complexity and simplicity, I guess, to a degree. And then there's also in 14 this differentiation between a utility class and a like non-utility damage or, you know, direct kind of class. So utility or classes that have some kind of functionality in that way tend to always get a little bit of the short end of the stick in damage and stuff because that utility is supposed to be so powerful that it balances out your lesser damage. But that's just not really the case. It's just not. So having reses, I mean, like you said, Aldino, I mean, they've increased Red Mage, and I think even this last patch we got an increase for it, right? Because really, resing is not the end-all be-all. There are plenty of fights where a res is not going to save anything, you know?
Right.
2 reses isn't going to save anything. If you've messed up the mechanics, you've messed them up. That's it. That's the end.
Right.
There's much less freedom with that compared to other games where, I mean, I think resing isn't punished as much as a utility, and you may even be able to res like a full party or, you know, people all in one
Raise yourself.
yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. And you know, monk changes, it's hard to say. Like there's real calculus going on. I mean, serious.
I believe you.
But
that word scares me.
I mean, you know,
Math?
Downtime is way better. Downtime is way better. That's the main thing. Like recovering from downtime is way better. And a lot of the changes we saw, like to Red Mage, were to the beginning of combos, to the first hit of your melee combo, to the first, you know, to Jolt, to Verstone, and I always forget. Yeah, Verstone and Verfire, I think, because it's lightning and arrow. Yeah. I don't know. I pressed the button.
Right.
But it's to the beginning of those when you had to recover from something, right? Because you have to start over then. It's kind of an interesting way to do it. And Monk, like, the burst is insane. Like, they can get up really as high as, you know, Samurai or whatever in their opener. But, you know, it kind of evens out. But if there's more downtime, they do more damage, basically. So.
Yeah, downtime's always the killer. Like I played through Matoya's Relic as Dragoon, and it's been a while since I've played
I was like
Dragoon.
actually going to ask you if you'd picked it up to see the differences.
Right.
I mean, I didn't really know. You know, it's like what, like an extra 10 potency on Chaos Rust or something. But it's like it's been so long that, like, you know, between pulls and the boss and all this stuff, like I lost my stance, and it was like, oh yeah, that's a thing, isn't it?
Look for Dragoon to be next with this treatment, right?
Yeah,
because it just makes sense to me.
Oh, you know, and that's what I've been saying since Samurai came out, right? This idea of stances and all this kind of stuff, like. So I'll be really curious, especially after these monk changes. I'm really curious to see in the future, right? Because, and we talked about this a little bit before, the idea of positionals. With these monk changes, they're really just kind of like here's a button to ignore them, and you get like
Yeah.
3 charges of it. It really makes me wonder, because I don't know if you necessarily need those, but they do help a lot in that skill ceiling discussion, right? So I'm really curious what if any changes are going to be made to that with 6.0. I'm really curious to see.
Absolutely think so. I think that they're implementing this stuff now as trials for how they're going to be adjusting stuff in 6.0.
Well, and I mean, and keep in mind too, since last expansion, even like Eureka, we saw characters or monsters that don't have that little front arrow, right? It's just a circle. It's just positional. It doesn't matter where you are. So it's interesting. Like, you have them, but then in some content it doesn't matter. Like, it's really interesting. So yeah, I'll be curious
I will
to
just
see
say right now, I hope they never actually change that, because I use that little front arrow.
Right.
Especially when you can't tell where a boss's face is.
Oh, sure.
Please don't ever
Yeah,
take
and
that
the
away.
flank
Please don't-
indicator
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the arrow's
Yeah.
good, but Fusion, I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them take positionals out of the equation. It's a weird thing that like only melee DPS have to deal with, and I think that initially, again, it was that idea of like a skill ceiling payoff for more direct damage on an enemy. That, like, melee DPS are the hard hitters, they're in close, they're taking a higher risk, but they can deal more damage, and they have to do these positionals because of that. But with all the other changes, like you were saying, from like even like the tank stance, cleric stance, all these other things that we've slowly seen them like peel out of combat, this is just one of those weird extra ones that it's like, well, honestly, if you're going to have a caster that can do just about as much damage as a melee, why does melee still have to deal with positionals, but nobody else has to deal with that?
I mean, that's the thing, and I think that's part of why, I mean, other than Machinist just being an absolute badass this expansion, like, I don't have to worry about positionals, or like, when that very first Eden fight came out, with all the lasers and stuff going off, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not melee in this. Like, everyone's like, okay, so this is how you beat him, and this is the uptime strategy. It's like, oh gosh, that it irks me that has to be a thing. Like, if you're meleeing, like, you have to, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, like they're saying in chat, like, positionals need to stay, because it's one of the only things that has that skill differential, right? So I'll be curious to see if they do anything with it.
Yeah, as a caster, I mean, I was melee DPS in every other MMO I've ever played, right? I only cast here, honestly. And positionals weren't a thing in the other games that I played. Good or bad, I'm not sure. But I think 14 stands out because of the positionals in melee, and I really love that. And I love that that's how you really show your mastery, uptime, and being in the right place, and dealing with the mechanics too. Because as a caster, that's really important, because you have to learn to slide cast, right? The best casters cast more spells than others during the same fight, because they are always casting, they find a way. And I think that sort of optimization is really important to keep for people who want that extra level. So I don't want to see positionals go away, but I could see them going,
Well, and the other kind of thought, right, that comes to mind, and we asked this back before Stormblood came out, with the way that they made those combo adjustments in PvP. Everybody was like, well, why not have them in PvE? So who knows? I mean, it's one of those things where they keep adding actions. The hotbar keeps filling up, and then they remove some actions because there's too many things, and then they add duty actions, and I don't know. I'm really curious how, again, like, if at all, like, if there's going to be any big changes to battle in 6.0, what that could be. I mean, coming into Shadowbringers, they removed TP, right? Like, that used to be a thing.
That occurs to me every now and then. I was doing one of the Baby Eden fights yesterday, and I was standing in one of the towers you have to stand in pairs, and there's a warrior next to me just like spamming his axe throw, and I'm like, don't you love that they took TP out? Because without that change, it'd be gone, because he did it 20 times,
Right.
I mean, look, there's some times where even if you're, you need to do damage, and you're just not close enough, so you just need to.
Yeah. What I will certainly say is that, as a caster, if positionals go away, where is my damage?
Ooh.
Where is my damage? Why am I being punished because I have to stand still to cast, and raising takes away my MP, which melee don't have to worry about a resource.
Mhm.
And you still have to do the most mechanics because we're still going to do uptime strats, so range is still going to do more. So range doing less damage by default, and then doing more mechanics, and then melee not having to do positionals, would not be quite happy about that.
Yeah, and you know what I
Clear
think
that
too.
down.
An important note in this discussion as well. Yoshida's job of choice is Black Mage,
Right.
so he's
Exactly.
very aware of movements and
Yeah.
things when they're designing this battle content. So
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do, and then I think you're definitely on the right sort of trail here with the idea that they might be trying things out leading up to 6.0. I mean, I think that there were a lot of really good changes. I mean, White Mage as a class, holy cow, in Stormblood, I was like, what are you even doing? Why? Why do these stupid lilies exist? Everything about how you've structured this is counterintuitive to how people actually play this class. Like, it was so messy. And the structure of it wasn't terrible, but it was obviously just not fully realized, and they really it just had to
it
have
was
been worked
rough
through,
because that was the introduction of the job
the job
UI
system.
thing. So
Mhm.
like we need one for each job. And
Yes.
it's actually really interesting if you pick up the art book for Stormblood. They have the concept arts and stuff for what they were thinking about doing for some of these job gauges, and it's just like, boy, things changed a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, that was definitely one of the classes that I think suffered the most for it. And then coming into Shadowbringers, they really were like, okay, let's try to figure out how to make this a thing. And I mean, as somebody who played Astrologian through all of Stormblood and then came to Shadowbringers and really enjoyed White Mage again, even though it is a little more straightforward and things like that, I was like, this feels much better. So, like, there have been some really good changes. But personally, it is hard for me because, I mean, Stormblood Astrologian was one of my absolute favorites. And do I feel like now it is a more watered down process? Yes. Do I find it as fun? No. Do I think that, just like this discussion about Monk, it's fine and it plays fine and it probably does better in certain areas? Sure. But we have also had a lot of discussion recently about a lot of the classes' identities, or like genre of classes' identities, becoming more uniform. The play style between each of the healers has become more similar. The tank play styles more similar. Like, and on one
Especially
hand,
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yes, it's like on one hand that makes it easier for somebody to pick up any of those classes and play them, but on the other hand, it's not as fun, I think, to pick up a new class and engage with it and have something that really makes it different, so that when you're sitting there and you're picking, you're like, oh, I just like playing warrior, so I'm gonna play warrior, or I just like doing this, so I'm gonna do this. It becomes more of a like, I mean, I'll do whatever. So I guess I like my glam more on Gunbreaker. So
Well,
like,
so I guess, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? So the question here, I guess, then is, would you rather that jobs play drastically more different than they do now, and then risk having the, like something like the DPS balance be that wildly different, right? Because I think that's kind of part of why everything is balanced so well, because yeah, maybe the jobs are a little samey with what they can do, right? So
It's hard to say, yeah. I mean, no matter what, they're going to have this problem forever, and they're going to keep addressing it. And we're going to keep seeing these back and forths. We're going to keep seeing Bard get 10 potency and then nothing, and it doesn't really do anything.
Bar change is coming. 10 potency.
Right.
What?
We're going to continue seeing kind of homogenization of support as well, because one of the smaller things that Monk got was Brotherhood now affects everyone. Now, some people didn't even know that Brotherhood is only melee. I was intrinsically aware because I'm a caster. However, now that it does do it, for everyone, you kind of go, oh yeah, no one has anything that just buffs one person or one type of role anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's
Bard
not
does.
true. Yeah.
Well, not one role, but Bard does in that all of their buffs are for everyone else but them.
Right, and then red mage is still physical only with their AoE buff.
Really?
It's magic for you. It's physical for everyone else. So you don't buff any of your magic users. It's not just damage, right?
I guess that kind of works a little bit more for them because theoretically they're the only caster in a raid
Theoretically,
situation at least.
Yeah, but it's it's some of these little
Weird
things, right?
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing too. I mean, just the structure of the game in general. There are kind of support-ish like utility abilities, but there's no like support job. So
I would
like,
But
100%
this
okay. Go ahead.
is such a tangent.
I know that's true.
that's what we do here. We
But we
talked about
talked about
socks
socks.
earlier. You didn't think that we would go off?
But we talked about socks for 2 minutes.
That
Yeah,
is
that's true.
I mean, it
Fair.
is the thing is though that like these monk changes have been a huge discussion point with especially with this new tier of rating and all sorts of things. I don't think that like here in 5.4 this is an unrealistic discussion to be having, right? Because we are seeing them deal with some of these final classes that maybe didn't quite get brought into line with a lot of the other things from Shadowbringers. So this like change for monk I think is a very specific thing that does indicate stuff that could be happening in the future, so like this larger scale discussion of like what were they going to do with this change, this monk change weirdly enough has these like ripple effects that I think will speak to even some of these design mentalities going into 6.0, which is why the community has been so like if anybody's just been watching monks foam at the mouth over this, it's like it's because there is a lot of discussion about this in the community right now and the direction that it could take. So it's not a total tangent, but it's a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, any time that they change a job, especially after that like that 0.1 or 0.2 patch, it's at that point they have at least a general idea of what the next expansion is going to bring, right? So it's like, okay, maybe we'll give Bard 10 potency for now, and then in the expansion we'll change some stuff. But with Monk, I mean, so much has changed, and they're not going to change it all again, right, in 6.0. And so I think...
Oh, yeah, they are. I honestly, I do not fear and do not expect, that is, I do expect big old changes to any job at any time, having played Bard for so long. Like...
no one is safe.
They will on a whim just be like, you know what? We think that you should play like this instead. Guess what? You're a caster. Oh, and then you're not again. And then Astro, the card system, like they took the heart of that and just like, here, we're gonna do it. Yes, the heart of the cards. They ripped it out, tore it up, threw it away, and stuck in what do you call a replacement heart? The robot one.
Oh, you can just say a robot heart.
Robot heart. They put in a robot heart, and so now it doesn't have heart. Right. It is. If you can tell, I don't like new cards, but anyway, they will at any point at a job and be like, you're going to be completely different. So I am definitely not going to say the changes they won't happen. They will.
Monk, like fists and punching, that's cool. We're going to change all your moves to headbutts, but hitting things with your head hurts. So each headbutt action, each time you attack, it's going to take 1% of your HP away. Please look forward to 6.0. We hope you enjoy it.
A stack of grease lightning away.
We're gonna replace your job gauge with a concussion gauge.
Wow. Even at this point, though, Monk still has some things that like don't really work. Mm-hmm. So it has to have changes. It has to.
I mean, it could also be, too, that they are looking to complete Monk's kit with the next cap. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's definitely something that I think I felt with the Shadowbringers changes, funnily enough, where classes now at cap feel, I think most of them, even with my own conflicting feelings about Robot Heart, thank you so much, with Astrologian and stuff, right? Like, most of them, for the most part, feel fairly well-rounded when they are at max now. But there were a lot of classes where like that sort of gradual progression sort of got nixed to where until you have your full kit at cap, you were like, why exactly do I have this and this and that and then but I feel like I have a weird gap in this one spot for like an ability that I would need to use.
Because you do.
Yeah, and then you
you get 80 and it's magically like, oh,
yes,
okay.
And you're like, oh. So I'm wondering if these like monk changes, I mean, kind of like how Sam, although Sam's not the most complicated, but when you hit a certain point, you at least get a little bit of something to make it a little spicier, you know? I'm wondering if Monk is going to, like, they are looking ahead, so we will get something that feels more like the fully realized new challenge of Monk with the next level cap, and they'll build off of what they've done here. Or, I mean,
Could
then, yeah,
be.
you're right. They could totally scrap everything. They honestly
Yeah.
could. They have.
Hopefully, like for the sake of monks, I hope they don't scrap the whole thing, but there are still things in there
Could
that
you imagine
need-
like
need to be
relearning
fixed,
Monk
so-
with this patch, and then 6.0 comes along, and they're like, "All right, here's just completely like give it the machinist treatment, and just completely."
It's happened before.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, Eden. I think we haven't really touched on
talk
Eden.
about Eden.
I
let's talk about
loved the incredibly subtle. You would only recognize it if you played a lot of 8 references.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I didn't. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's a good reason. I hope it's a good reason. Previously, when we saw references to stuff, they were much more direct. It was like we saw a character, we saw a bad guy, we saw an area, we heard some music. We still hear some music in this one, so that one's pretty spot on. But in this one, I appreciate that it's more like a parallel reference rather than here's Squall. But I wanted to see Squall. I wanted to see Ultimacia. I wanted to see those things. So it's cool that they were like, this story is totally parallel to this story in a weird kind of way. But also, I didn't want that.
I think for me, right, and again, like without spoilers, the story was okay. The direction we thought it was going was not the direction it went, and it fell apart at the end. It was kind of like okay, and then you're just like what?
You know, to be fair to it, and this is maybe a bad thing. I've had to watch it a couple times while I was making the baby version guides, and second and third watches of cutscenes do clarify things because it is a bunch of parallel references. You kind of have to line up story bits, and the more you pick up on stuff, the more interesting it makes the storyline. But the fact that you have to watch it multiple times is kind of a failing. Yeah.
I also really appreciate it's weird because there's the last fight has this mechanic, and again no checkpoints in the normal mode. Savage does have a checkpoint. Thank you for that.
Oh my god.
And Savage also cut out this part in the normal mode. There's this really interesting part in the last fight that they haven't really done before, where it's kind of like weird narrative storytelling, but in a fight. And in the normal mode, like the first time is cool, but then after that, you're just like, and my whole time I was going through that, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be terrible and Savage, but they just cut it out. So thank you for that. So yeah, it was really interesting, but I think for me, yeah, it was okay, but then towards the end, I don't know if this was because obviously like we had expectations, right, and it just didn't hit that. So if like that might be part of it, but at the same time, it's just I don't know. There's something about it that just didn't, for whatever reason, just mesh with me.
I didn't necessarily have expectations so much as like hopes that I pretty much knew weren't going to happen.
Sure. There you go.
So I wasn't necessarily disappointed, but the story went to places I did not see coming. And while I didn't necessarily think they were out of place, I didn't also think that they necessarily served a purpose. So like, but you know what? We did get some really like juicy, like this one cluster of juicy information in the middle.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the focus necessarily either of the whole thing, and I think it would have been better if it were.
It felt restrained in what they were willing to do with it, I think. There's definitely areas where they could have just gone like full out, just like lore and connections, and they really kind of held it back, I think. So I think that's kind of what bummed me out about it a little bit. But yeah, the ending for me, that last fight, I just
Okay, the music of the last fight, amazing. Like okay, I just want to say it's so good.
It's Kingdom Hearts. It sounds so Kingdom Hearts to me.
So
It's
here's
so
here's
good.
my
I love it.
my thing, right? The final music for Savage,
Yes.
yes,
I'm
1,000
sorry, I have to like move away from that
times
microphone.
yes.
Ah!
I don't
The-
think it helps.
The music
I'm
for
so
that
sorry.
that
I'm
that
so sorry.
the music for that first phase, though, or like the normal fight, it's very like it reminds me a lot of that some of that final music that we had for Omega. Where it's just kind of like this grand, epic-y sounding thing, and to me, I'm just like, eh. It's like just generic epicness. It's
Aw,
not.
I'm
I'm not.
sorry.
It's not my
I'm
thing. It's not.
sorry.
But we
You're
got
both
the
wrong. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean I get it. You're right. It does definitely sound. I think this is kind of thing. I actually really like that music. I think it's really fun. But
Sure.
I think Zen, what you're saying, and what you said makes a lot of sense to me because I liked this portion of Eden. I thought it was probably one of the stronger portions of Eden. I thought the story did have compelling moments. I thought that Reen and Gaia, I really, really found it sweet seeing their relationship and the way that they are coming together as people. Like, that's really sweet. I really liked that. It did feel, though, like this whole vision of everything is just kind of discordant. It felt like a whole bunch of stuff that sort of got thrown together in like a grab bag. And like when I look back on the whole arc of all of the Eden raids, right? It's like I like where we got and I liked this last portion fairly well. But do I wish that we had like seen more of the core of this in the earlier story?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I wish we had seen more just like intimate one-on-one moments with Reen and Gaia rather than it being like, and then we went to go bond at the Crystarium, and you're like, great, I guess I'll imagine that, you know, like like I feel as though the last part was good, but all of the components that kind of came together were so discordant for me. I'm like, okay, so we have Eden and we have the 8 influence, but we're not totally leaning into that. But we have the primal, so we're doing, but it's the same primals we've had like 500 times, so we're gonna redo the, okay. And then you get to like the last part of this, and the last boss, I mean, has nothing to do with 8. I mean, it has nothing to do.
That was my
It's
thing.
It just,
You-
it feels
yeah.
like all of the ingredients aren't coming together to make like a satisfying narrative cake, if that makes sense.
Right.
Whereas when you look at like, and I think the boss design and the arena and the storytelling they did, all that stuff I think is cool, but it doesn't come together in like a finale that unifies all the narrative and themes and shenanigans. Whereas
It's like the cake from Sleeping Beauty. They made a cake, kinda.
Yes.
And I think
it's weird.
this is one of those things where, and I've mentioned it before, right? As somebody that, I mean, obviously I'm doing more Savage now than I was when I originally had this thought, but I still have this thought, especially with this tier, with the, you know, the phase change for Savage. You really lose a lot in normal mode because of that. There's just that little bit of extra story. I think that would have made it. I think that would have solved my issue. I think that I had with the ending and this boss, because you get into this fight, and you're just like, what the hell? What the hell is this thing? Like what? And we'll mention this next week because spoilers. But I mean, there is some like historical like, hey, this is what this is, and it's still it's like, but why? Like what? I don't understand why this is here.
I think Brooke, you made an interesting point about how the characterization felt kind of shallow, especially coming off of MSQ, where it's the strongest characterization we've seen in a while for this game. And then you have the same characters suddenly over in this other thing, and it's just like, well, like, what about this girl? What's her deal? Oh, okay, that's her deal? Tell me more about that. Okay, it's over. I guess not.
Yeah, and like the raids themselves don't reinforce that narrative, right? Like we were talking about like the previous set, right? And the fact that like the culmination of that set, right, is Reen, Shiva, Hydaelyn. So like in theory, that fight alone to me says that one of the big cruxes we should be dealing with here is the legacy of Hydaelyn and how it has affected Reen, right? And that if we have Gaia as an entity, that we should also be getting a story from Gaia about how the legacy of what she's dealing with in a way brings her together with Reen so that she understands her in a way that nobody else does and can step in to save her from this thing, even though Reen has done so much already to save herself, right? But we don't get that. Like
we get a little bit of that first
they
part,
brush across
and then
the
the
surface
rest of it crumbles. And And that last cutscene when you go to like turn in the quest in Mordsuk drove me up the wall. I was just like, "Are you kidding?" After all this crap, like it's just there's so many points in like narratively you could be like, "Oh yeah, okay, great," but I get right without saying what happened.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
I think I liked how this tier started. I think
Mm.
narratively I thought it was really cool. And then it starts to get like okay, and then you're like lore, and you're like, okay, not where I thought it would go, but all right, let's keep going. Who is this thing and why should I care?
Right.
And that's when it fell
Yeah.
apart for me.
And it's like when we get into the actual MSQ breakdown, or like the spoilers breakdown, I'm excited to talk about it because I do think that like in the larger scheme of things, that final boss definitely has a place.
Mhm.
Like you were saying, even with historical references fusion, like there's more to it. But when it
Yeah.
comes down to it, I just didn't. It's like I feel as though they couldn't decide where exactly they wanted to put the focus of like the backbone of this narrative, And
It has scoliosis.
I mean, it's weak and it's sort of curvy and it just doesn't quite. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who suffers from scoliosis, we love you. It's
Yeah,
not like.
sorry.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where I'm like, to me, the most compelling thing in this, and what Shadowbringers has really excelled at, is the relationship between Reen and Gaia. And with the culmination
Mhm.
of this, I thought those cutscenes in that regard were good. But
Yeah.
every other thing should have been building that.
Right.
Every single other encounter, raid. But instead, it gets all muddled because we had all these other characters, and then we had these primals that we were imagining, and then all this stuff. Like, I almost would have rather just seen us have nothing to do with it and to have like Reen and Gaia being the ones who are like creating these entities, or and that each of those fights reflect something about their own fears and the way that they can support each other or something,
We did have hints at that though, like in one fight in
Only this
particular.
part, yeah.
in
Right.
one in
But
particular. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the whole problem, though. Like there was some stuff here that they could have really dove into, and it would make it more
Yeah.
rich, and we would have liked it better. But
There's
they just
some
brushed across the top of everything.
really cool stuff that they could have gone into.
Mhm.
That it just felt. I mean, to me, when we talked about this last week, like this is gonna be awesome the way that they're
Mhm.
going into this, and that wasn't the way it was.
On the flip side, our memories did get better if you look at that first boss.
Yep.
I mean,
We-
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
we are thirsty. We are the
I do
warriors of thirst.
Yeah.
I think after that first encounter.
I do have to say, from just a standpoint of visuals and
Mhm.
design and things like that, I do think this one was more fun, more unexpected, more diverse.
Yeah.
I thought the fights were very memorable to me. We are just working through E9S right now with our static, and I think it's been I've enjoyed it. I think that, like, again, overall, it wasn't that I really disliked. It just felt a little bit less realized. And like I see in chat
Yeah.
people talking about Omega, right? And like to me, I even felt like the Omega progression was more coherent. Like even with it being a sort of
Yeah. It was
nostalgia
one
throwback.
story rather than 3 chunks of story.
Yes.
And
And,
that's there were some parallels too towards the
Yes.
end of
Yes.
Eden that kind of reminded me a lot of Omega. And again, it's that ending of like we've kind of seen this ish like already. Like this kind of thing has been done before. Like it doesn't seem new.
I want to ask you what you're referring to, but I can't.
Mhm.
No, I mean,
Right.
at least in Omega, those nostalgia throwbacks, each of those different bosses, and like Kefka in particular and things, right? All of those, I think, really tie into the larger themes of Omega's struggle, like what Omega is. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that last tier of Omega. And I was
Mhm.
sort of so about, I mean, I liked it, it was fine. But when we got to that last one, and especially that last fight with MF, like, I thought that it was such a wonderful realization of the themes. And we have this like iconic design that was like the classic Final Fantasy design. And then we have Omega who's struggling with this idea of what it means to be mortal and trying to like, break that apart literally and put themselves into these different
Right.
bodies and then come together in this, unification of the power of technology. Like, it's so good. And the mechanics are so cool. And like the arena and the music, like, it all works and it all like leads to that goal. I mean, even Kafka's, dreams and
Right.
delusions of godhood lead us to that goal. So it's like, I think that overall it hung together better for me by the end,
Mhm.
you know?
It's
Um,
interesting coming out
It's
of Omega,
also
right?
because it is a little bit more of a fan servicey reference type thing. It's
Mhm.
allowed to be a little bit more shallow, and then when we do get the deep stuff, it's
Yeah.
standing on its own.
But then we're like, where's the fan service? That's what I was gonna get. Like, it's weird, right? Because you came out of Omega and you're like, oh, it's like Exdeath and Kefka, and we came out of Evil Use, and it's like, okay, they tied it well together, right? It's like, yes, it's 12 and stuff, but they've reworked it in a way that makes sense. Whereas Omega was just like, here's bosses from previous Final Fantasy games, the Raid series. And it was like, that's cool, but also like give us something original. And now with Eden, they've given us that, but we're like, can we go back to the other thing? It's that weird balance, and again, right, like I don't envy the people that have to come up with this stuff, because it's
Yeah,
like,
for
we
sure.
want this, and
Could
then they
we
give
do
it
better?
to us, and then
Probably
we don't like
not.
it.
So
Um,
kudos still.
And you know, and I do wonder, we know that Tetsuya Nomura did the designs for Gaia. I think I heard that he may have done the design for the final boss too.
he did.
As well as some
Yeah.
story points. So I'm wondering how much of this is Nomura like, here's what I want this to be, and then the dev team going, okay,
Guys, I'm not sure that's right. I didn't see a single
here.
zipper.
yeah,
no
like
sense.
I you know, and I'm curious just with the, you know, with how they work together, how they tried to piece things together. Maybe it just didn't work, or they had A and C, and then they had to come up with B, and they, you know, that's how things. I don't know, but
Definitely could be. I do enjoy getting to know, and this is not a spoiler because it's the last tier, right? The origin of Eden at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing to me that fell the most, because I think that is a main story quest relevant, almost like
Yeah.
you need a real cutscene for that sort of thing to really
that's the
explain.
thing. Like, it's rough, right? Because I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But you also, you know, and we've said this about Eden before, that idea that it feels really connected to MSQ, and that's why
Right.
it's so good. When you look back at, you know, Heaven's Word, you're like, Alexander's over here in the hinterlands, and we don't know why. Nobody mentions it in the MSQ. But, you know, coming from like Coil, where that was like essential to the story. And they've been getting better, you know, with that, with
It's
the
almost
raids.
like when you do a little side quest and they give you an extra juicy tidbit, except it's a really big side quest.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice to have that connection, but at the same time, I mean, I think there's definitely some stuff that like big reveals kind of like this should be in the MSQ, but how do you weave that in without like
I don't know. It doesn't
taking
bother
that
me.
weave away from the raid? I don't know.
Yeah.
As
I mean,
someone who's go ahead.
No, Aldo, you go ahead. I've talked a lot. Go.
Oh, as someone who just really has begun to love the first, right? I really love that place and the history of it. Like that sort of thing. Like it was kind of blindsided, right? The way Eden began, but it makes a lot of sense, and there's a parallel with our character, right? Just to say that there's a big parallel with our character that I can't get into it without spoilers, that I love, that happened in the main story quest, or could have happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. We should realize that we avoided that. You know what I mean? And I would love to go more into it. Of course, I can't.
Maybe
But, like,
next
didn't even-
expansion is
I
just
honestly-
another parallel planet where that did
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's
There is a
kind of really awesome.
I love it.
Well,
I
but this is
love
what
it.
I mean about the story just not coherently directing us in a way, right? Because the fact that our first raid is Eden in
Yeah.
this entire story, and yet the actual relevant Eden reveal is in the last portion of this narrative, which is when you would have the literal most impetus and understanding to want to fight Eden. It's like, it's so baffling to me. You know what I mean? It's like they couldn't just decide how they wanted to direct this. Like, if this was a narrative that was about discovering the origins of Eden, that's what we should have had.
Right.
But it's like all over the place, because we don't. You're like, okay, well, this thing is, and then Gaia, and then, but is she from the void, or it, and then, and oh,
It
but now,
does.
they're friends, and now, and like all these little pieces aren't bad, but the actual like momentum of the story just does not match what's happening with the fights.
It's like the if you take all these different little story bits, right? You have Gaia, you have Eden, you know, everything that's going on, and it's like when they made the puzzle pieces, the little sides aren't quite right, and you're just kind of mashing them into place. I feel
But
that's what
kind of
Eden
like-
is.
It's kind of like what I said about how when I watched it through a couple times, it started to make more sense. I bet if you
Okay.
watched the whole thing through again, the pieces fit a little bit better together.
That's
But that
fair.
works.
That's fair.
That works more in like a book, and this is a
Or the
raid
main
tier
story.
where you're not
Sure.
gonna go back to the beginning. Period.
Right.
Yeah. I will say though, after the last two tiers, you know, and this was the biggest issue I think a couple of us had with that second tier was like, oh, we're gonna fight more primals. We knew what was coming, right? And so, in terms of just like kind of where the battles went, I thought that was it was at least interesting. Maybe if we, you know, we weren't crazy about what we actually fought, it was nice to kind of be surprised.
Right.
So that was nice.
I love
Can't even-
2 and 3 of this one. You know, the second and third fight of this one, like the middle of this one, is so much lore and so good. Like we were talking about.
And it's rough because again, it's you know, you have those hopes or expectations, right, coming into this, and so then you get in there and you're just like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. How could the why didn't the devs read my mind and deliver exactly what I wanted from them?
Well, it's funny because like when I played through it, I mean, thinking about it now, there's a lot of things I critique. I mean, like I said, I didn't dislike
Yeah.
it was fine. It was fine. I liked a lot of the story beats. I'm a big sucker for 8, so yeah, those little parallels and especially some of the final cutscenes, I was like, oh.
Just these
When I
random
heard-
like throwaway lines in these quests
Yes.
too. Like they don't mean anything to anybody, but you read it and you played it and you're like, I get that. I understand that
Yes.
reference. Like nice.
I love
It's so
that.
it's so damn subtle. A lot of these just random
It's so
one-liners that they
good.
put into these. Yeah.
And the battle music. When the battle music started, I was like, oh my god. Like I was so happy. So like I do think there were a lot of good things with this. I think that overall though, it just didn't quite, for having so much potential and being something that I was actually super interested in, and like we were saying, that had a lot of really relevant lore for you know, the
And
first
it could have had even more.
Yes.
And they didn't do it.
I just felt like it didn't quite, like you said, it didn't quite hinge together in certain places. And that's not to say that it wasn't a good experience and that I haven't really had moments I really liked in this tier. I just think there were some weird little rough spots that feel discordant with the otherwise excellent storytelling of Shadowbringers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too, is with how good Shadowbringers has been. It's then you get Eden and you're like, oh, there's a lot of really cool potential here, and it falls short of the expectations that everything else has kind of you know, established for this expansion. And so bummer. But all right, speaking of MSQ, spoiler free MSQ discussion, how do
You know how you do it? You don't finish it before hands on.
there you go. I liked it. Coming off of the first, you know, and this is stuff we've seen in the trailer, right? We see Merylwib again. We see Lise again. Like, it's really cool to come back from the first and not only just kind of like get back to business, right? On, you know, in Eorzea, but like to really be like, hey, remember like Grand Companies, remember Alamigo, you know, say what you will about, you know, not liking certain characters, right? But to really come back and it's just, you know, you're going out to like, again, stuff in trailer, you go out to like Lenosia for something, you're like, that's awesome. I really like that. I mean, it's going back to those older areas to remind you just like, these are areas that exist in the game. It's not, you know, just like the couple newest areas is all we're going to see. There's stuff going on everywhere, and that's really cool. I really like, again, I won't say this one,
Right.
even though it was kind of in the trailer. They do some really cool visual storytelling, and I'm really curious to see what they do with it going forward. And I was really surprised by just the way the direction the narrative went. I wasn't sure what to expect with Van Daniel and with Xenos. So
I'm
yeah,
still not.
Yeah, I still don't know where it's ultimately going to go, but I am definitely excited to see what happens.
You know,
I heard
hmm
from a friend that they were kind of disappointed by the MSQ.
Okay.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah?
I am not the friend that you heard this from,
No.
but the part of going back to the source
Mm,
up until a major event happens, I
mm.
was sleeping. I do not care about
Okay.
Lenosha or anything near around it. I
How
just
could
don't.
you?
I do not. I don't find that story compelling in any
Where
way,
are you
shape, or form.
from?
Olda. That's
Of
why.
course.
I
All
mean,
right. Okay.
I don't like the trappings around it. I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'm watching this. I know what's gonna happen, right? I kind of know that the conceit that's here, like the danger is not gonna happen.
It's
No,
it is
you know.
interesting for what does kind of happen before that, like that
Yeah,
holy shit
that moment.
moment. It's weird because like from a lore perspective it's like whoa,
Right. Yes.
but I also, it was weird because I kept having to remind myself that the things that were happening were a big deal,
Right.
but I also kind of didn't care, which is I don't know why.
Yeah.
um
We
and
did
and
just
I
come
think
off of
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
See.
This is
like
what I
some
was
it's
really
it
good
is,
stuff. We just
well,
came off
Yeah.
some really good
it's
stuff.
you
And
know
it's like,
some of
okay,
it,
we're back to the status quo.
Well, and I mean,
right.
the thing is too is that like from a storytelling, like actual structural storytelling
hmm
standpoint, right? We just came off of a finale, and
Right.
we are now in
Yeah.
a prologue. So
hmm
like the
Hmm.
fact that we had this huge emotional high point for the game, and now we're coming into what is essentially just setup. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a little bit of a snooze fest, and
Well,
like
and
I'm
I
not
and
giving
I yeah.
like it's cute. There's a lot of really cute stuff that happens, and like you were saying,
I
Fusion.
love that first quest.
I mean, yes, like
Honestly, yes.
but
Hmm.
like you're saying, Fusion, it is massive for the fundamental things that have created a political environment in the world that did need to be dealt with back on the source before any kind of progression could happen, right? Like it is not as though it is unimportant. It's just that like it's not that exciting compared to a lot of other stuff that we've had. And I
Well,
mean, it's
and
not
yeah.
perfectly written, it's not like anything. It's just that
hmm
it's really the first steps towards, I think, setting the stage for what we're looking forward to in the future, right?
And I
It's just
think the issue with setting that stage too, like if I had a nickel for every time I've said again without spoiling anything, um a lot of these themes that it's connecting to are things that we haven't done since
hmm
like 2.0. And even then, some of that is tucked away in side quests. And so first you have to remember those elements. Second, did you even do them? So I mean there's definitely a lot going on, to kind of throw it back to just like OG,
Yeah.
2.0. And that's really cool that they're kind of going that far back.
Yeah.
Because again, Shadowbringers is a expansion that is set up to answer a lot of lingering questions about 14 and its world.
hmm
And so this is kind of starting to lean into that. Where it's going to end up, I have no idea.
Right.
But I am super excited. And again, even if maybe it's not being told in the most exciting way, it can definitely have, I think there's a potential for a huge build up. But again, we also had Eden
Yeah.
where, we saw things and we're like, oh shit, this is going to be great. And then it doesn't quite get there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
To
okay.
me, it's like up until the moment, I think that the big revelation that we brought back from the first, right? I'm not gonna
Mm,
really that I think that I can do that without saying spoilers. That's important. The
mm-hmm,
politics could have been, and we did that, and I would have been like, cool. And that's not usually me, right? It's just because
mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, but you love Gundam politics.
I love politics in general when it matters. I don't think any of them that we were showed even
Mm.
matters
I will
because,
say, oh no, go
yeah,
ahead, sorry.
just because, yeah, it was gonna happen. Yeah, okay.
I
So why
think,
do we have to watch it and
But
go through it? Yeah.
mhm,
you are an Alda kid.
I
I'm a
mean,
Lindsay
yes,
kid.
but I
And
mhm,
wouldn't.
going
Oh yeah,
back to see Melvib and seeing there was characterization there, seeing
yeah,
that
yeah.
change in her. was really great because initially things that she did in the storyline made me go, girl, maybe change your mind a little, and she does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I
I'm
think
like, cool.
it's important too because, and when I was like doing my playthrough of this, I commented on it because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so with our major leaders, right? What have we seen as far as like a focused story development for them? And like in my head, I was like, oh my God, we've had so much with Nanamo and like Raubot. Like we've had entire side plot lines where, you know, we're going along with her and she's learning what it means to be a ruler. And then I was like, okay, well, what about Gridania? And I'm like, okay, well, you know, we've hung out with the Seed Seer a ton. There's a lot of lore and the Wood Whalers and like, you know, we've been in and out and talked to her a lot about various issues and she's come to help us with various things. And I am a Femru lover. They can step on me. They're powerful, beautiful, and I love them. And I've always wanted more from Merlveeb. And when I was thinking about like all the characters we've had, I mean, even in Heavensward, Emmerich we spend time with, Hien we spend time with in Stormblood. Like we get all these moments, and although there's stuff in the core game where you're with Merlveeb, we've never really had like a focus on like Limsa and what is happening with them and who she is and what the pirate council is and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a weird, I guess it is sort of a weird place to put it. It does feel a little bit like, okay, have this. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll take this now. I guess I'll listen to politics.
The good stuff we've got from Limsa in the past was usually side stuff, like Fusion was saying, like the Rogue questline is amazing Limsa lore, but only if you level Rogue.
Yeah, I just don't think that we got a spotlight for her, but I think it was just a hollow spotlight. It was a...
Do you think so?
Yeah,
I'm actually in the middle of that part, so I can't speak on it as much.
To me, I'm like, okay, things are gonna go down, and then as it's happening, I'm like, they didn't even have to worry about this in particular.
I think it's one of those things, right, where we're coming back to the source, and they need to ground us a little bit on the source. Like, okay, let's get us back to familiar characters from the source. And I think I almost draw like a parallel with you know, like 2.5 with Nanamo, and they're like here's Merlwyb's like little story arc with us, right? You know, obviously it maybe didn't hit quite as hard as Nanamo's, but I think you know, they had to kind of with whatever story they want to tell going forward. That's the thing. You know, we're still not, even after this patch. If anything, I think I have more questions about where 6.0 is going to take us. Because again, we have these hopes and expectations. We have these thoughts of what could happen. None of those questions really got answered with this patch. So I'm really curious to see where it goes. And I think
that's 6.0 man. They're ready to punch us in the face with those answers.
Where, you know, with the things that did happen with this patch, I think it worked. And it's you know, and it's one of those things, right? You have to have a build up. You have to, you know. I couldn't imagine they would go from the last patch to just boom. Like they need to build us up a little bit. They need to build up that excitement. And I think that this patch did a good job of doing that. I don't know what we're building to, but I think obviously in the next patch, which presumably could be the last patch before the expansion, usually part 1 and part 2, right? But I think some crazy stuff is gonna happen, and
it really is. I wanted more, because like you guys, like I'm not from Limsa, but I saw Merlwyb and I went, okay, cool, we're gonna see some. I don't think it was enough. I think it should have been more like we had with Nanamo.
Boo.
That's what I think. I think it's
sad.
I mean, you know, play it yourself and get your own, you know.
I will.
But for me, I'm like, yeah, but we could have had an adventure, right? I don't think we have an adventure.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. It doesn't feel like, you're right, it doesn't feel like an adventure we are having with her, right? Like, there's definitely more focus on, I think, some of the other people around us. That's really, I won't say too much more, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's definitely a starter. And what's funny is that, and I'm sure we'll probably be talking about this next, I almost felt like I got more of those MSQ moments I was thinking I would get from Emerald Weapon than I did from the actual MSQ.
Yeah.
I loved the Emerald Weapon quests this time around, which was real. It was a surprise for me. I'll be honest. It was a real surprise.
I still need to wrap the anything else on MSQ before we move on.
Yes, just really quick.
Yeah.
I briefly wondered as they presented me with this first travel someplace quest with some of your Scion companions. Did they like do a poll and pick the top 2 faves and be like, okay, those 2 are the ones going with you? Because those 2 are probably my 2 favorites.
Sure.
I'm not complaining. I lived
might have.
every single second of it.
They maybe didn't do the most interesting stuff, and I'm not a fan of the place that they went, but I did like having a little jaunt with my buddies.
Yeah.
I did also like the what they did with what they got, she said super vaguely.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And
oh, this is one thing. Oh my gosh, I just realized before we move on to anything else, the dungeon in the MSQ. I guess because they're tied together.
Oh my gosh, that they did give me exactly what I asked for.
It was really good. I really loved it too. I thought it was so fun.
So I'm gonna say that I'm not gonna consider this spoilery because it's not story based. But one of the things that I have been asking for in this game, in the fights specifically, is verticality. We kind of got that.
For a second.
Yeah,
well,
and that was really cool.
Had some little vertical element or some kind of unique momentum element. And I really liked that. Like, I thought that was fun. I liked even just like popping up to different elevations. I liked that the arena, I mean, like the whole place was new. We had new graphics, we had new assets, we had all sorts of, and I was like, yay. And the music was fun, and the sort of like setup of it where, you know, you're moving through not just in like a linear corridor way, I thought was really fun. I thought they had some great like little nods with the different mobs even. Like there were mobs that kind of were sort of throwbacks to stuff from Ilmeg. There were mobs that were throwbacks to stuff from Great Gooble. There were mobs that were even throwbacks to like the geographical monsters.
They had a lot of really cool ties
Dravania.
from other dungeons in Dravania. Like so good.
Anti-Tower, Sonny of Ziggy.
Sonny of Ziggy. Oh
Like,
my gosh, I
got
love
to that pack. Everything was dead except for him, and then I actually look at the name and I was like, I'm sorry, you're trying to get revenge and are also gonna get murdered.
Buddy, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and I think too, to kind of just help sell the theming of this dungeon, right? Remember, stuff got pushed back by 2 months, right? So originally this would have hit like in October.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is like that just sells it even more. I think. I thought it was really cool. It was
precisely what I asked for. I was like, Halloween remix, oh Matoya theme, please. Ba-bum. There it is.
Token's like, here you go. Puts a little bow on it and everything. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was good. I love just that little bits of verticality in it that they had. And we had like a
LSD
tiny...
lava. I got into that area. Yeah.
So many rainbows. Like, so many rainbows in this patch.
There's like you go to the end, you activate something. There's one of those like right next to you when you start, and one of my friends goes, "Are we making lollipops here?" Because that's what it looks like.
See, it's cool, and then you realize it was a chemical spill, and you've breathed in fumes, and now you're gonna die.
Oh no. I was gonna say my only complaint is that there's no spot in which you can go stand in it and then splash emote each other.
Let's just go stand in the rainbow lava. It's fine. Everything's fine.
I would definitely also recommend doing it with trusts with the certain person that should be brought in. You know what I mean? Because it's pretty funny. I mean, there's not a lot, but bringing them in with any other person is kind of hilarious. Like just what
little
they
bit of
say
bubble
with-
text.
Yeah, just a little bit, not much, but
And you
it's
know
kind
what?
of like, wait, what?
This particular dungeon is probably the easiest dungeon we've had in a while, but it's definitely the most fun, so I don't even care.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say the mobs and things could have hit a little harder. It seemed like I wasn't having any problem healing my tanks or anything, especially for like an expert roulette. You'd think it'd be a little spicier, but yeah, I had so much fun with it. I was like, whatever, this is good. I like it.
Usually, especially in a raid patch, when you hop into the new dungeon, it does hit a little harder and things die a little bit slower
The
because
level cap has been
gears
raised,
jumped.
so
the gears jumped. but it's just as easy as the dungeons prior were, and I don't mind. And the gear that drops is great. It's super great. I'm super happy about it, and I thought it was really interesting the way things die, because a lot of times you'll get like, if you dye something pink, it's dark pink and then light pink on the sleeves, right? But for the bard jacket, for example, it's like a leather bit and then floofy white sleeves, and the only things that dye are like the lace and the sleeves. The leather bit stays the same, so you don't get a dumb like dark pink and then light pink. You get the actual still leather forever and then light pink sleeves. I never dye anything pink, by the way, but that's the first thing that came to mind. But I thought that was a nice change as well, and I really like the Ilmig gear. I talked about this previously in another podcast, so I was really excited to see all of that gear reemerge.
Yeah. And one thing too, anything else on Relic before I segue this a little bit? One of the things that, talking about how it maybe wasn't hard, but it was fun. That was definitely the feeling I got from doing Emerald Weapon, the normal version fight. It's, at a glance, it's a little crazy. Like, mechanically, you look at it and you're just like, oh my god, but then it's actually not really that difficult, and it's kind of fun, which is cool. I haven't jumped into Extreme yet. I might do that this weekend instead of Raid. We'll see. But yeah, I thought it was a fun fight. Definitely not as hard as Ruby Weapon, not as annoying or frustrating as Sapphire was with that instance, but it was a lot of fun. The storyline was, I'm really liking the storyline for Wordlet.
Surprisingly good. Like, as much as I out of all of us, I feel like I complain the most about that first chunk of the story.
Sure.
I will admit that. But each progressive chunk of story I've liked more and more, and this one I legitimately enjoy now. Like,
they are doing a very good job of making us hate Milkman.
I mean, didn't you hate him to begin with?
I mean, he was just kind of weird, and he drinks milk, and okay, he seems like a not great guy. In this patch, though, like specifically the story that they tell, they really just get into just how horrible he is.
Yeah, you remember last time I was like kind of almost ranting about how, no, Gaius is actually still a bad guy, guys. This guy is like a great summation of, no,
Gaius
Garlemald has bad people in it. Yes, there are people in Garlemald that are fine. A lot of those people have been like encompassed by the Empire, taken over by the Empire. There are some Garleans who are real bad dudes, and he is one of them.
Compared to like Milkman Yay Calcius, I would let Gaius babysit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
maybe. As long as he doesn't put the child into a robot.
I mean, I think that they did a phenomenal job with this bit. And I mean, when it first was kind of picking up steam, I'm like, okay, we've got more sad orphans.
Right.
like, don't get me wrong, their story is tragic, right?
Yeah.
But and there are so many points with all of this that I wish we could be like, we could just grab them and shake them and be like, you don't have to do this, you stupids. Like, but at the same time, I thought that they gave them some good justification this time around.
Yeah.
I thought that the story we were getting with them was strong. I thought that, like you were saying, Gaius, we are continuing to kind of like walk the line with him not being totally redeemable. And I love that, because I think that that's very important, because like what he has done with these children is not wholly kind, like, and I think it's so important to discuss that. And some of my sorry, do you mind?
No, go ahead. I'll remember it.
Okay, hold on to it. Like, some of my favorite themes from Stormblood was exactly that like occupying another nation, that this military structure, this empire that is Garlemald, it is an incredibly complex thing, and the way that they bring people into those ranks, the way that they affect the populations, I mean, just like in history, it's very complex, and I think that it's really great to keep digging into that. The one thing that I absolutely wanted to say is that I think out of all of this patch for me so far, what's shown for me were those truly villainous scenes with Milkman. Like, the animations, we have never seen, like, we've talked a little bit after the Scions cutscene at the end of 5.3, like, the way that they are starting to push their engine with how they do things. And like 14 has always had dark stuff that happened in it, but this was the first time in this game that I saw it, and I was like, holy god.
Right.
Like,
and it's funny because some people joke about it, right? It's like, oh, this cutscene goes like, like full anime, right? Just with the over exaggerated expressions and stuff like that. But I think laugh about it and poke fun of it as much as you will, but that really does help kind of sell that tone. And I think that this tone, I mean, they really hit the tones they were going for in some of these scenes. And I think, Milkman is really
he's terrible.
Not a great guy, and I think that makes him a really interesting villain because of that. Because we really haven't had, 2.0, we had Gaius in a helmet. You know what I mean? Like, there really wasn't any kind of expressions from anybody. It's like, oh, then we had like La Habrea as Thancred, but like in a mask. Like, you never really see a lot of this, and we start to get a little bit of this in when Stormblood came out with Asahi, and we see Asahi for the first time. We're like, oh, he's gonna have crazy anime face, and he does. But yeah, they're definitely getting very exaggerated with some of these expressions, but I think it needs to be, right? Like, if you're gonna have like this kind of evil smirk,
anime.
You can't just have like a little. You need to really just go all out.
Well, and you have to think too, as a theater nerd, like, you have to think too about the tradition of what leads to those anime expressions, what leads to those sorts of things, right? Japanese theatrical traditions, there's a lot of mask work, there's a lot of face painting, there's a lot of different things, right, it's very physical. So like, you even see this in things like Manderville quests, right? These physical comedy sequences, these faces that are struck, right?
Things are meant to be exaggerated.
Yes, like, it's all meant to be exaggerated. And it's unfortunate because I think that voice acting in this sequence could have really, in the one that I'm thinking of, could have really helped. Because, like, the way that I've even voiced him on stream is to give him a very, like, kind of high, quiet, patronizing child, like, I'm talking to children kind of voice. And then in these moments, it, like, breaks through this, like, nastiness, this awfulness.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
If we had that, those expressions, I think, would absolutely make sense within the context of like a dramatic reenacting, right? It's a little tough when you're just reading it and you're like, and then whoa, hold on, but I mean, it's part of the tradition of the heritage of, a lot of theatrical or, entertainment in Japan. But it's also something that I think you just have to use as a texture with the character and kind of fill in some of those blanks. Zen, I cut you off, and I really want to hear what you have to say. Would you please tell us?
As my cat joins us and decides he needs to meow. I said I was going to remember, and I did.
Oh no, you jinxed yourself.
Yeah, I usually like have to write stuff down because I have a terrible short-term memory. What were you talking about at the time?
I think it was still expression.
I was talking about Milkman, that creepy in there, the graphic engine. I
don't know. I don't remember. I will say that I feel like the expressions and even, like, his body language, which is insane. He's nuts. He's a crazy man.
Oh yeah.
I think that goes beyond crazy anime. I think that's more than that. Like, yes, some of those faces are spot on to some crazy evil villain people in anime, but I feel like the perception of it went further than that. The thing that I was gonna say, I remember, it's about Gaius.
Hey.
I think we see some almost silent character development here, especially with the last character. She's being vague, but like, maybe it's just me and my perception, but there's a point where he's not saying anything. He's not talking at all, but like, just the way he kind of looks makes me go, oh, he's questioning everything ever.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that a lot because, as I said before, like, I'm the person who's sitting there going, no, Gaius is still a bad guy, and I enjoy seeing that there could be some changes here, and I think it's setting him up for big things, which I didn't think before, but now I do.
Yeah. The only thing that I'll add is I think that the way that it's going, like, we have the first part of it. We had Ruby, and it was very generic, right? It felt like, okay, all right, I get it. They're color coded. I got it. The second one, we get a little bit more.
They uncolor coded them. That was the first favorite thing that I saw. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Keep going.
Oh no, that's fine. That's the way Gundam works. It starts with a very generic conceit. There is a kid. Look, there's a gun. I bet he's gonna get into it. Yeah, of course everyone knows that. But as soon as they get past that exposition and get into the war or whatever's happening, that's when they hit you. That's when they go, yeah, you got that conceit. You felt that. Cool. Now let's hurt you. And that's what they're doing, right? And it's very Gundam. It's very, very Gundam.
Yeah.
And I love
think
it.
Do you think with all of this, Yoshi P is making a play for a Gundam like game or anime on the side? He's like, I can help you direct. Look at this thing that I already did.
I don't know, maybe.
It's
It'd be cool.
It's
My goals for
interesting.
Yoshi
The
P.
more we talk about Milkman, and as much as we make fun of Milkman,
We have to make fun of him because he's creepy and makes me feel icky down to my soul.
We've given him a nickname. I mean, that's how much we're talking about him. He, I think, right now, is more compelling to me as a villain than Xenos and Fandaniel.
For sure.
I mean, the way they build him is so good. Like, we don't have to have any, like, it's so good. I can't wait until we can really, really talk about everything, because like the visuals in those cutscenes from the very first sip of nasty, sweaty milk that this man ever took, like, they have all so well conveyed the levels of his villainy. And I love that. Even just the child standing in the room, before we had any context, before we knew anything from the past, glimpses we got of him, all of these things have just like culminated
The vibes.
Yeah, but like they also are just telling us so much about him, his motivations, the abuse he doles out, like the all these things about him that are just in a single cutscene that are so good. The way he's written, his expressions, all of that stuff, right? And right now I do feel like I'm lacking a little bit of that with Xenos and Fandaniel. And I think it's because they're trying to be so vague about them. And granted, I am with Xenon. I have not finished all of the MSQ yet because I've been working through and recording it. But I do feel like he should be, like, I think he's going to be a huge player coming up. And I feel the same way
I
like,
hope I hope that Milkman comes out in front, because I mean the way I've kind of seen him, like right now, Xenos is very just one note. He's just like, I'm going to fight this guy. Yeah, that's my thing. That's my whole characterization. I'm just, yeah. And then you have Fandaniel, who's essentially like Heath Ledger's Joker, where he's just like, oh, I'm going to just do crazy things. And that's it. And then you have Milkman, who is also kind of crazy, but also like super dark and also calculated. And so I think that's what makes him...
He's like if you effectively combined our current Xenos and Fandaniel and made them actually good.
Okay, yeah.
What we think of as a plan, right? This is a man with a plan, and he will do anything to get it done, anything. And that is so much more compelling than someone who doesn't seem to have a plan other than, I'm going to fight you. And someone who literally...
I'm going to go fight him. Yeah.
He's also kind of... like in the midst of a whole bunch of content that has been sort of, I think, giving nuance to Garlemald, which I think is important, right? Because again, no one nation is ever one entire thing, right? But we've seen a little bit of ambiguity even with some of the stuff that we've had in Boja, right? This like unique legion and what really is happening here. We've seen some things with Gaius where they've been making him more ambiguous. We've seen a lot of these things. Whereas Milkman really is truly the dark side of the Empire, right? Like, he is that imperialist mindset. He is that competitiveness. He is that striving and squabbling for ranks. He is that racist. Like, he is, like, there's so many different things that go into this, right? Supremacist. He is all of these things that Garlemald, I mean, sure, the Askians have had a large hand in a lot of things in Garlemald, right? But there was a mindset there that in some way facilitated this large scale expansion, this mobilization, this imperialism. Like, And it's kind of nice to see a villain that is like, yes, this is what Garlemald was. Like, because it's been like we've had all this gray area, which is great, but at the same time, like there are some real fundamental
We've
issues
had a lot
with
of nice Garleans too. Like the
Mhm.
majority of our Garleans in the storyline, we have Sid. We have that one guy whose name I can't remember at the start. Maximilian, Maximus,
Mhm.
Maximus, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen them. We've seen Gaius, who is kind of on both sides, but is also beating up Ascians, so we like that. We see Varys, who while he is the bad guy, he has some like personal issues with stuff that's happening and is just kind of a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
We see Emmett
Lucia.
Silk, who is technically the first Garlean, and he's like, I'm doing
Yeah,
what I want.
when
I don't
you-
care about these. But
you
then we
look at
see
all the-
a real solid one who believes in the Empire.
You see all these influences and stuff. You have these these Ascian characters that are you think about like how they're like the original race and all this kind of stuff, and then we finally get this one character that's just normal human guy that's just the worst because he just is like it's not a
All Garleans so far become nice guys. We need a bad one that stays bad.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you think
mean-
about the pressure of their society and their culture, like they create people like this, like, and that is what's so fascinating. And I think it also works too. And Aldino, I want to hear your opinion on this too, because I think a lot of the initial sort of outlook on this Gundam thing, right, is just that like, oh, it's like a fun little Gundam anime thing. But when you think about the actual themes in Gundam, right, so much of it, this is what it's about. It's the idea, I think I jokingly said on stream the other day, like, stop putting these sad kids into these deadly robots.
Right.
But like, that's kind of the nutshell of like a lot of mecha anime as a genre. But Gundam too, this idea that there is this like idealistic side to being a hero to your nation, to being a military power, but that carries these awful, horrible things in war. And that, like, as you strive for power and you strive for the means to control it, especially in an aggressive way, there are certain sacrifices to humanity and morality that get made. And it was so, like, I didn't even realize until we talked about Mighty earlier, but I didn't even realize until that memoriam post that went up from Yoshida-san that he himself is a fan of Gundam. And I think this was such a perfect fit, honestly, to unify those two. Aldino, I'm curious, like, how you felt about, especially with this last sort of portion. Like, do you feel like it's really, you're like, yes, this is great. This is great.
Yeah, it is amazing. To me, like that, him as an enemy is going to be amazing. I hope that he's not gotten rid of, right? I hope that if we do go to the Garlemald, we have to deal with him. Like, I would love that. That'd be great. But yeah, one of the main themes of Gundam, literally, the guy who created it, war is hell. It's not glorious. It's not fun, right? And you have to ease them into that and then show them the war and show them the people who believe that war is just glorious and fun or righteous, and then show them what the truth is. And I just see that in this arc, right? They're color-coded, we're gonna fight them. Wait, what just happened? What is an oversoul? What is this? Wait, did they die? And then you just keep building on that. Why
Wait, did they know they were gonna die?
Right, exactly.
It's hard too, because there's a lot of really strong elements in here, and especially with the characterization of Milkman.
I'm never gonna call him his real name.
I'm like, I paused for a minute. I'm like, I should call him his real name. I don't remember what it is. Milkman. It's rough because this is a side quest, right?
Yeah.
This is not MSQ. It forks from it, patches ago. There are so many, and I'm trying not to hype myself up again because I did that with Eden, and it didn't come through. And I feel like there could be some really cool things to tie into MSQ, but I
saw
don't
Eden
think
kind of
they
do this on the way, and this
will.
was just going whomp.
Yeah, it's just ramping.
I mean, there's
Feel hopeful.
there's especially there's like one line in MSQ that really makes me wonder, like,
Oh, sure.
But
I don't know.
At the same time, I feel like no, they wouldn't do that unless they come out in 5.5 and they're like, hey, if you want to do MSQ, you should probably go do all the weapon stuff.
I mean, that would not
Please.
be out of line though, because we saw a ton of stuff, and we haven't even talked about, oh my gosh, like the additional job quest. I haven't
I
done
want to
that
do
yet.
that. Yeah,
I haven't gotten to those yet. Yeah.
but I mean, they have been retroactively making these bonus primal sets requirements for story. I mean, I don't know. I don't know because I went to Anukalai when I was at the Rising Stones, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go make sure he doesn't have any new dialogue. And it seemed like there was something that I had not seen there that he had, but I don't know if it's just because I was super behind. And like, I'll be honest about that. I have no idea. But there definitely seemed to be some acknowledgement of some of the things that were in play. And, you know, we know he's tied to, you know, the Warring Triad and all these other things. So like, I would not be surprised if they start designing this kind of content with future story in mind, since it's worked so well and they've started doing it retroactively for other stuff. Like,
and and in all honesty, I think like they need to. I mean, because otherwise you end up with Alexander, right, where it's there and it plays no importance, even though there's this giant ass thing over here in Dravania sucking up like the entire like land's aether. But nah, we'll ignore it in the main story. Okay, but when you do make these connections, it makes everything it makes the world more of a world. You know, it's not just like, okay, and then you have this segmented area and this other area that doesn't do anything with this area, and it's weaving everything together, and that's, I think, what is making a lot of this stuff so cool. And I hope they didn't really get it done with Eden like I was hoping that they would. I really hope that they can do something with Sorrow World. I think there's again, right, just like there was with Eden, there's so much awesome potential, but I don't know if they'll follow through with that. But we'll see.
Love to see. Yeah. What did everybody think about the actual fight itself?
It's pretty fun.
Fine.
Yeah,
they
fun.
showed us a close-up of his feet, and they weren't as terrible as Ruby's, so that was good.
I know. They're not terrifying hoof feet. They're like bell-bottom jeans. They're way better.
It's way better.
Uh,
I think Fusion
going back
got
to
it
the
spot on
clothing talk.
earlier. Some of the mechanics make you go like, whoa, but then when you actually break it down, you're like, oh, just stand here and then move here. Okay.
You start to see the telegraphs, you're just like, oh shit, like what? But then you do it and you're like, oh, that was fine. And the fact that like you know, I play a lot of this stuff with my wife who's not like a raider, right? And so we did this together. She was like a little like nervous going, she's like, I don't know what the mechanics are. I'm like, I don't either, which made it even a little more worse, right? But we get in there and again, right, we see these telegraphs going off and really we're just both like, oh god, neither of us died. She's like, that was awesome. So
Yay!
I thought it was good. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, same. And you know, I didn't really pay attention to the actual abilities. Like, I want to go back in there and pay attention to the abilities because it is Emerald Weapon. We have fought it in 7. I know that they're all there. I don't really need to check, but I would love to see some of those, you know, like, oh, which one is Airtam Storm? Which one is this one? You know, like, how did they, you know, implement those? Because I love that part too. But yeah, the fight was fun, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, talking about, you know, the kind of just making the world, you know, more of a world, I think this questline specifically has done such an amazing job of that. Turncliffe, right, is like the best example. It's like, we're just gonna randomly like throw this like little town over here. You can walk around, there's some NPCs, there's like a triple triad NPC, just new music, new like aesthetics, all this stuff, and you're just like, it's just in the middle of the side quest, and you're just like, you get there for the first time, and it's funny because you come to it from like a distance and you see like, oh hey, look, it's the cliff from Kalusia, let's see how many more assets they reuse, and you get in there and you're just like, holy shit, this is awesome. And so
That's what you get for being jaded.
Right? Yeah, and I think they've been doing such a great job of world building just in this one quest line alone. And if they can kind of help to, you know, connect the pieces of this to the rest of the world going forward, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. I will say I didn't have as much of a okay, so like you were saying, there were a ton of in the story and things, oh shit moments, but I didn't have quite as much of that with the actual fight itself. Like, I mean, granted, it's the same thing as we talked about with after the first reveal of the first tier of Eden.
It's that expectation. You kind of know what's coming.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for my mind to be blown. And then, we went into the Oversoul and I was like, oh, okay. And I really I like the music. I like the idea.
Music was
I
good,
enjoyed
yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
And the arena change is really fun. I thought that was really cool. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I actually do really dig this. They did something a little bit different. I love that. I think I could have used just a little bit more of a oh dang moment.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would have been exactly.
Mhm.
But I did feel like maybe I think because I was just sort of bracing for it, I didn't feel like there was quite the same I literally screamed during Ruby
Right.
Red, you know? Like
Sure.
it was so wild to me. And even in I don't know, like Tsukiyomi, for example, where we have that phase that's kind of just a story phase, right? I
Sure.
felt like some of the confrontation of oneself in the mirror felt a little stronger there to me thematically.
Mm.
But all of that said, I had a ton of fun with Emerald Weapon. I really enjoyed I thought the fight was fun. I thought the whole thing was fun. I thought the story, like I said, was fantastic. I think they really blew it out of the park. It felt stronger in a lot of ways, even than the MSQ for me. I was like, wow, they've done such a great job with this. It's not like I was disappointed. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
was just that I did have a little moment where I was like, oh, I thought they might hit me with something else, but oh no,
Nothing's gonna top Cartano though.
yeah.
Yes,
It's
You in the
hard.
face with Cartano, and it's like, oh.
See, I just wish that they had swapped that one to closer to the end. Maybe with this one, put the one that we
Sure.
got here first, because I think that makes a lot more sense, really.
Yeah.
And then we would go, okay, so who else could it be? With the first one being who it was, it's like, holy crap, it could be anyone, right? It didn't set that. It set a bigger expectation for this one than
Which people have heard from us because we've been
Right.
going, oh no, it's gonna be so and so. Oh no, it's gonna be so
Yeah,
and so.
exactly.
Right. Yeah. You have
Mostly
that.
wrong.
There's that like short list, right? I think they
Yeah.
for the next one, even though we kind of already have hints, right, storyline wise of what it's going to be, I think they should be like, you know what, that didn't quite work out. We were testing some stuff, maybe didn't go. Let's
I
pop
think-
let's Oversoul Daddy Manderville.
Wow. You know what I
and
think is gonna be the twist?
Go full
What is that?
Manderville for the next.
The pilot.
Sure. I mean,
Okay.
it could be.
Yes,
Okay.
well,
Certainly.
yes. There's some bad decisions being made, and we can all see them coming from a mile away.
Oh yes.
I'm-
Oh yes.
I am curious though, because although they have kind of led us with, what we think might be the next Oversoul, I hope they do really surprise us. And again, how do you achieve that? I don't know. And when
I
I'm
see.
trying
See,
to
that's the
think,
thing. Like,
Mhm.
I have theories, but then I look at Eden, and I'm like, no, they wouldn't do
You don't wanna
something
get-
cool
yeah.
like that. But also, oh my god, like
6.0
yeah.
6.0 machinists get Oversoul for their robot. You get to pick which one. That's it. That's what I want.
I mean, that'd be pretty
Automaton
awesome.
Queen Oversoul Eggies.
Except
Yeah, exactly.
except then someone has to die.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, we'll figure it out. It's fine. We'll
It-
workshop that.
It's details, whatever.
Sid's on it.
That's
Sid's on
just
it. It's
a
okay.
bug. They're trying to patch that
Right.
out.
Sid will get it.
All right. Yeesh.
Yeah, I'm excited to tinfoil this just a little bit.
Mhm.
Just a little bit next week because
Next week when we can actually reveal
I could-
things.
I could
Yeah.
go for a long time on various thoughts that I have, but
Yeah.
next
So
week is the
everybody listening.
review, so we're gonna keep it 99% factual.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anything
You
else?
mentioned You mentioned it earlier. The Void quests.
Yes.
That side thing. So I don't have a tank anywhere near it. So I just looked them up.
Fair.
Do them if you can. Do them. Yes.
Oh.
Really.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
It is probably the most lore. I don't know. The level of lore in it is way more than anything else in this main story quest and in Eden. Period. 100%. It's
Wow.
such deep lore and it's so
Right.
cool. And I did not expect what happened. So
And
yeah,
you need all the role
Okay.
quests done for that, right?
yes, you do.
Was
Yeah.
that?
It's like,
So it's
I
hard.
can do it. I have it already.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
do it. I just didn't with all of the other stuff that I was working
Mhm.
through. You know what I
Oh.
mean? So
I need
I
to
don't-
get a healer up still before I.
Right.
Can you do it before you do MSQ?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do that
certainly.
first.
Yeah, I think you can. I don't even know where it starts. I just read the synopsis and I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh, okay. Oh, cool. Wait, what? Who? How did that happen? And what are they going to do now? Like that, it was so cool. So,
I'm glad that
Backlog
exists
is
because
just like,
the fact
I
that
study the soul. I can tell you
Yeah.
more things about
oh
the
my
soul,
gosh,
which I
that is
study.
a callback.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad we have that because the lack of void lore in Eden that we were all expecting was a little disappointing.
This,
Yeah.
I don't want to even talk about it because, like,
Yeah. No.
as someone who loves the
Statement
first,
said.
it's so
Moving
cool.
on. Yeah.
That's it.
Cool.
All right.
Um,
All right. All right.
I
Titan?
think
I haven't-
Titan, I guess.
Has anybody done that one yet?
I have
already?
not
Yeah.
done
We've
that
poked it.
yet.
We
Yeah.
poked
We
it once or
we
twice.
went in a couple times and we actually didn't beat it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but we only tried it like I
After
think
raid.
yeah, it was like, okay, we're done frogging for the night. Does anybody want to stick around and do this? So it was like a couple of times.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
It is definitely harder than Shiva.
Mhm.
I would not say it's harder than original Titan at all.
Mhm.
But they fixed the what is it, server ticks issue.
Mhm.
If you think that you're not going to
Oh.
make it out of the weights of the land puddles, because that's how it was in the beginning, you've made it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is nice.
That's
Nice, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
nice to see. I know that was kind of part
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
the difficulty
Yeah.
back then, right? So everyone
Yeah.
here's like Unreal, and you're like, oh no.
We did a little experimentation with the first landslide. If you pop your knockback nullification, it works, but landslide hits really hard, so you
Yeah.
could still just straight up
Hmm.
die from it.
Off tank probably could do it, I would guess. Off tank, do they get arm's length? I don't even remember. They get
Yeah.
something. Okay. Yeah, like you
So-
probably could do it
Yeah.
for like a caster. I was like, yeah, let's try it out. Let me see.
Yeah.
Hit me for more than my HP. Said nah. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
the casters and the
Would not
healers both.
recommend.
This is from
Yeah.
full HP too, and remember, tumults are happening a lot. Tumults still
Mhm.
hurt as much as they used to in that first fight. So if you're going in expecting wussy tumults, no,
Yeah.
very hard hitting, 4 of them in a row. Be ready.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, for landslide, if you are a healer or a caster, you will probably die even if you don't get knocked back. As a dancer, I had to bit this much HP. I'm gonna say that was probably like 300 to 700 HP left,
Oof.
and that was from full HP.
Yeah.
Our melee DPS had a little bit more, and the tanks were like whatever.
So don't go into that fight hungry looking to eat some landslides. It's
Yeah, don't do it.
Yes.
it's
You
not
could-
gonna end well for you.
If you don't think you're gonna make it out, and especially like if you're in because we actually did kill a couple people with the old jail murder. We broke
Yeah.
them out right as landslide went off, and they went off the edge.
Yep.
So if
yep,
you
yep,
think
yep.
maybe your party's gonna break you out of a jail right as landslide's going off, just maybe pop that button just to see, just to
Mhm.
be careful. We haven't experimented with things like Unavant or shoulder tackle or anything.
Yeah.
But
We will.
if your knockback works, then those probably work.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think that's all I have for that.
I'm trying to think.
there
I'm trying to think if
weren't-
there's anything else. The new UI theme.
Oh yeah. Did
Oh,
you try
yeah.
it?
I looking at that, I was like, that's gonna hurt my eyes. I didn't pull it up at all.
Anybody else?
No, I didn't
No.
try it. Did you?
I
I,
saw that you
remember you
did,
said you
though.
might try it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have been using it.
Yeah.
How is your vision?
It is definitely bright.
Mhm.
I think the only reason I'm still using it is just because it's something different
Right.
at this point. But I don't dislike it as much as I did the light theme.
Oh, well, that's good.
So I think if it was just a little darker, just
Mm.
a little bit, I think that would sell. But I do appreciate the kind of attention to detail with it. Looking at like the light theme, it's the original UI, but it's just like light. You know what I mean? But with this one, if you go into like your like config options and stuff, like all the little icons and stuff, they're kind of pixelated a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just that little
More
extra
themey.
detail to it, which it feels more of a theme and less than just like a night and dark
Yeah.
mode, so
Yeah.
it's again maybe a little brighter than it could be, but yeah, we'll see if I keep it up or not.
I'm glad you tried it. There's no way ever you can ever get me to do a light mode anything ever. Nope. I'm not even gonna try.
Okay.
Yeah, if
I-
the themes did have, I think if they had more like unique things to them, and
Mhm.
like you said, it would like change certain little icons or change like kind of how it would look, or what. I think I would probably experiment with them more. As it is, I'm like, I'm fine with what we got. I have no problems
Sure.
with this. I have zero complaints. I can read it and see it. Is it a
Yeah.
little clunky to use? But they all are, yes. So that's fine. Like,
There's like a Microsoft app that I use at work that doesn't have a dark theme, but if you go into the registry of your machine, you can activate it, and it's so broken. I don't care. I do it anyway. I cannot stare at Light's theme for like, because 8 or 12 hours a day. I can't do it.
I think
way.
back to like 15-year-old me that used to use like the high contrast
Right.
mode back in like Windows 2000, and I'm like, how did I do that?
Your eyes were still young.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
I was
Maybe
gonna ask.
that's why I had to get glasses.
Maybe. Oh gosh. I was going to ask you, Fusion. I saw that you were experimenting a little bit with the new housing casing that we were talking about, the display cases.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Did anybody
So-
else?
I
mess
think I was gonna bring it. Yeah.
Initial thoughts are okay, not bad. I think my issue, because like as somebody that has literally like a case full of
Right.
figurines and stuff right behind me, I was like, I'm gonna put all my little like statue things in this case. The shelves, like the heights between the shelves, for most of them are just too low. So a lot of stuff will either clip or it's so the other huge problem, if you look at the shelf, if the shelf version, there's essentially like 9 slots, because you have 3 on each side and then kind of 3 in the middle, depending on if you just put like one thing on each shelf. So that's 9. The case itself is 10 furniture items, right? You can't move it if it's full, because you can't move more than 10 furniture items at once. So put that
Wait.
shelf where you want it first.
And every single item that you put into it counts as an item in your item slots in the house?
Well, no. Like what I'm saying is, it's just like a normal shelf. So like you can set the stuff on it, but if you
Oh,
then try and move it as a group, you can't move more than 10
Okay.
at the same time.
Right.
So
And-
put
and they do
the
take
shelf
up-
down. Yeah, put the shelf where you want it first.
Mhm.
And so the way it works, you can buy either just like a big kind of empty case, or you can buy the shelf one from the housing NPCs. And then they have a handful of other ones that are kind of like pre-filled. So there's like an art one, there's like a baked goods one, there's the weapons one, there's a fashion one, and there's like a toys one that you can buy. I think those are probably crafted. But the just like the empty ones that you can just kind of play around with yourself, those are from the housing NPCs. So don't pay a bunch for them on the market board. Just go find the NPC. And Yeah.
Question for you. Did
Answer
you
for
try
you.
using the Riviera shelves, like glitching them sort of through the thing so you could make in the big blank one, so you could make the shelves of your own size?
I had not thought of that. That is not a bad idea.
It would be more slots, but things would be maybe arranged the way
I'm
you
not
want.
like limited by slots right now. Like I'm not like trying to be like, oh god.
Well, there you go.
Interesting thought. I did kind of make it work. Some of the statues do kind of fit. And there's some like a little like the plush kind of mascot dolls and stuff that I have in there as well. So it's on my Twitter somewhere, buried under other stuff at this point. But yeah, I don't dislike them, and I think too, like at some point, like they had to be like, okay, this is how tall it's gonna be. It'll fit a decent amount of things, So I think they're nice. I mean, obviously, like I have stuff clipping out the back, like nuts, but
But if you shove it into the wall, it doesn't matter.
exactly. It's a little tricky fine tuning them, because once you put that on the shelf, it's like, because of the glass, it's technically like inside the item, so it can be kind of tricky to like click on. But I thought they were nice. They weren't bad.
Cool. That's good.
I did hear, and this is something just as a general sort of PSA to everybody. I don't know for sure if it is affecting everybody, but they must have adjusted something behind the scenes with something in housing, because I've had a lot of friends who have like complicated builds or builds that have even been done by other people, where things that have been like lofted or that have been like lifted with a very specific thing now have all shifted over a few fractions.
Oh,
So
no.
check in your houses, or if you commissioned a build and you haven't been in for a little bit, you might need to pop like a little message to someone and be like, hey, so half of my stuff is all glitched through the wall now. Because I've seen that happen to a few people. So it's something with like a very specific item or some specific way that things are lofted, I think.
I think the new Starlight event, isn't that adding a new loft?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if somehow something, if that's somehow tied into that.
Yeah, definitely could be. Like, they could have just changed like something about lofts in general because this one wasn't working, and like they needed to change it so that they could implement
Really
this
curious.
one.
Speaking of which, we didn't actually mention this earlier. Starlight Celebration starts this week.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's gonna run from the 14th to the 31st. So new items this year include the snowman mount that we saw during the live letter. There's some snow dusted trees for outside, and then inside you'll have a unmelting ice partition and a unmelting ice loft.
Make
So,
yourself a Kurthus cave for your dragon friends.
Mm-hmm.
there you go.
Yes.
I was actually, I didn't think I would be excited by this particular piece of furniture because I'm not a huge fan of roses, but I really like the trellis.
Yeah.
I took the marble archway and put some. I have like a plant in there before, and I took all of those out and put the trellises in the archway, and it looks really cool. And then I also made a couple of pillars out of 4 trellises, like back to back, and that looks really cool.
Nice.
So I'm a fan of a thing that I did not think I would like. I also really like the dragon, like pillar thingy. I have no idea where you get it. I don't have any, but when I was looking at the new previews, I was like, "That's neat. I want some of them."
That does look neat, and I don't know if that's like. I would assume that like aesthetic is from something, but I don't know what.
Shisui.
Maybe,
or Heaven on High.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm hoping it's not
cool,
a submarine thing, but it probably is.
Could be. I mean, the emerald weapon bust. That's a wide. That is a wide furniture item. It's like as wide as the damn display case.
It's those shoulder pads.
It's huge. So hopefully after consolidating some of these statues vertically, I have enough room now to put in the emerald bust at some point. That's my thing. I do all the little statues and stuff in my house. But so I think now that's everything. I don't think there's anything else.
Seems like it could be.
If we forget anything, we always have next week.
Yeah, we have next week. I think there's only like gathering, right? There was
the
gathering. I don't gather, so I couldn't.
I have not done that yet.
Yeah, well,
I need to
it's like a
try
collectible change.
Yeah, they completely gutted all the actions that you used to use for that stuff, and now it's just in this completely separate like interface
UI.
now. Yeah, I need to.
They added venture coffers. Did you see those?
I did not.
So you send out your retainer, and he brings you back a venture coffer. Sometimes, not all the time, just sometimes, and it pops you out some die.
Oh, nice.
I don't know why they made the change, but they did. I think it's so that it can bring you multiple, because I believe the chests give you multiple dice.
Interesting. I will send out my retainers then. Is that like the quick venture?
Yes.
Okay. I know what I'm doing with all my retainers now.
Yep.
If you need some rare dies, then give that a try.
Nice.
And if you don't know what to
nice
spend your if you don't know what to spend your grand company points on,
Ventures. Yeah. Oh, I have so many of all of that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I think then that is going to do it for this episode of Aetheryte Radio. If you want, you can email us, aetheryteradio@gamerscape.com. You can also tweet at us at Aetheryte Radio. You can find us on Discord, discord.gg/gamerscape. We have an Aetheryte Radio channel in there if you'd like to come and talk to us about the show. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Gamer Escape. Next week, we will be joined by Pook as we do our patch 5.4 review. Should be a lot of fun. Again, we'll probably finally talk a little bit about some spoilery things in that.
You might already have an idea of
so
what our score
hard
will be
to
like.
hold back during this episode. It's one of those things, like, when we do these episodes, it's like, have you ever seen that Penn and Teller, like, Fool Us show, or what?
Yeah.
I forget what the actual name of it, but, like, they watch a guy do, like, an act, right? And then they, like, talk to him in, like, coded messages to explain how they think they did it, but to not give it away to the audience. That's how we talk during these hands-on spoiler-free episodes. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, next week will be spoilers, will be a review, and then after that we're gonna take a break for the holidays. So looking forward to seeing everybody here next week, and we'll see you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.